Good evening, good evening everyone as well. This is going to be a great season, I'm sure. We're here, of course, for the first round of the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship, the TPI Cinema Daytona 120. It's going to be 120 minutes, 2 hours, if you will, of exciting door-to-door non-stop action. Lights to flag, I'm certain we'll be seeing battles across the field. We've got 55 cars on the circuit starting this race, and we'll cross our fingers, hope that 55 finish.
Yes, indeed, and apologies everybody, I was muted there for a few moments. Just a quick rush to get things underway. We did usually have these timers to count down to the stream getting going, just so everybody can get in, but unfortunately we start right at the end of qualifying, so we will be having a chat about sorting out the timing for this, when the stream will begin and so on. But we do have a massive grid of cars here at Daytona just before us, and what a fantastic way to start the season this is going to be. 2 hours of racing coming right up now, and I for one cannot wait at all. But there is your pole sitter for Mivano Sim Racing, Maxime Brient. He has Timothy Hayden for Impulse Racing alongside. Jagged shapes and matte black and shiny metal bits seemingly the theme there. I'm really impressed by the livery on these SimCity Esports cars. They look very, very pretty indeed, but we'll have plenty of time to go over liveries and other things too. Thank you, of course, to TPI, who are this event's sponsor as well, here on Sim Racers World TV. But Ed, just quickly, is there anybody you've got your eye on in this field that could take this win?
Well, of course, it's going to have to go for our pole sitter, isn't it? Maxime Brient. He put in an absolutely stonking lap time to get pole position ahead of Timothy Hayden, but going into turn one, he's going to be a big ask, I think, for him to stay ahead. We know how quick some of these drivers are, especially the lot over at Mivano. They're very accomplished indeed.
They are indeed. And we just get underway then. This season begins in the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. Maxime Brient got a beautiful getaway. Cleared the rest of them very, very quickly indeed. Down hard onto the brakes into turn one. Easy to lock up in these Dallara P217 machines, but everybody seeming to behave themselves at the moment, which is very nice to see. We do have two classes in this race, don't forget. You will be able to see them. Oh, as Fabien Massé has had an issue at turn one. But if you look at the wing end plates and the number boards on the cars, you'll see some of them are orange, some of them are dark blue. The orange ones are the Pro class. The dark blue ones, as we see here on Jose Buizan's car, will be the AM class, although he seems to be... Oh, we've got Timothy Hayden off the circuit. Timothy Hayden's around already. Not even half of a lap completed. And he has gone around, unfortunately. Gets back on. Just tries to avoid being in everybody's way. But we do have some guys that were listed as amateurs that seem to have come into the pro class on our timing, but we'll sort that as we go. Plenty of it, but quite a tidy start, to be honest, there in that one, Ed. Everyone seems to be behaving themselves already.
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest losers, though, has to be Timothy Hayden. He was, I think, in third position at the start of the race, but has since dropped down several places into that. He's now trying to get his fight way right back up through the field. And again, it's a characteristic LMP2 spin, just taking too much speed into the hairpin. You get the rear of the car penduluming around, a bit of sort of a very slow, sad spin there for Timothy Hayden. What's happened here with EJ Fulner?
Well, league admin, he's had an absolute nightmare. And my mate, Matthew Bunn, is racing this evening for Pure Sims Esports. We call him Matt Spun, and he has indeed spun. Oh, nearly collects the Apex car there. They both got very, very lucky with that one. But EJ now, unfortunately, sat in the pit lane there. But near the front of the pack, Ramez Azam is now up to third place. He's got Peter Zuber just in front. Daniel Kraft, the other Pure Sims Esports machine, just behind him. Very much on the chase. But he's in a bit of a sandwich at the moment, isn't he? With all these orange Simsa Esports cars around him.
Yeah, exactly. On board now with Alexander Walton. He's going to be trying to get into the slipstream, making sure he can use the great effect of the toe here at Daytona. His long, flat-out section coming up now. Trying to get on the power as early as he can through the final corner. When you get onto the banking here, dipping down low on this sort of very high degree curve. You don't really realise how steep it is until you're actually there at Daytona in person. It's a very, very steep incline, and then a hard braking moment into the bus stop, trying to carry some much speed through, trailing it into the corner. Doing a very good job there, Alexander Walton, though he is massively under pressure. by Aliu right behind him. Meanwhile, though, we're following Jose Buison, the AM driver, doing very well, up in 14th place. Look at him go.
Yeah, it certainly is flying at the minute, the Iridium Motorsports machine. He's got his teammate, Bart Horston, just behind the Australian driver. And that's another thing I want to touch on is we have a fantastic international grid on our hands here. We really do, as Zuber and Azam have just swapped places once and then back again. Maybe just having a bit of a switcheroo, as I've heard it described, while they're on the banking. But look at this, it is honestly like sprint racing in touring cars already by the look of it. But this is the thing, when you know you've got a 2-hour race, you know, everybody always says, oh, just take your time, you know, you've got plenty of time to get the job done, you don't have to rush into it. But when the field can spread out as much as it will do when it's a big field like this, in cars that are affected by dirty air like these, you need to get on with it early, don't you, and really get the hammer down, as Jose Buison is doing just there.
Yeah, Jose Buison really getting on with it, as you're mentioning, trying to get clear. Yes, he does get clear into the next corner, left-hander. This is all important because he's going to now try and pick up the toe from Aibola Lawal, I believe, the Scuderia Gunners driver, doing very well for himself. I think he is also the lone entrant in his team.
Yeah, I believe he is. I've just changed Buison into the pro class because it seems that's what he is in at the moment. We'll have to see. But it's these little things that we change over the course of the season, so please do bear with us. If there is anything that you see that isn't quite right, or some a bit information that's not in the right colour, for example, you know, there's a lot of detail that goes into these things. It isn't easy to get it right all the time. I'm just keeping my eye all the way up and down the order. There's some fantastic battles that we've going on. This is Augustin Blanco in the Banzu RX Flow Car, which is always very, very bright. I've commentated on them in the Sim Racers World Formula 3 series as well, and they had chrome gold cars in that, and they've got chrome gold cars here as well. He's got his teammate Carlos Olva just behind and just ahead. Bart Horston runs wide. Hugo Preto can have a little dive, but nothing too aggressive yet. And again, just coming back to driving these cars, was Mauro Prado. Sorry, Mauro Prado is. Oh, that's the other Banzu RX Flow car. As contact goes around. I was just going to say, Ed, that these things are so sensitive, not only on the brakes or with steering inputs, but in everything that you do. As we see there from Augustin, you've got to be so careful, and especially when you're adjusting your inputs when chasing traffic.
Yeah, especially as well when you're picking up the throttle, you can get that TC kicking in, and in the LMP2s it's dreaded, isn't it? It really cuts your speed, and in fact, having the TC cutting in can make the car more unstable and actually cause a little bit of a spin. So we're going to see if the drivers can avoid doing that. They all seem to be able to keep it safe for the moment, although Augustin Blanco, look at how close Carlos Olv is getting. Is he going to go to the inside through the bus stop? No, darts to the inside, then thinks better of it. Dips back inside onto the racing line and thinks about taking that move maybe at another time. Meanwhile, though, we're following Mark Winters here. No, we're not. Michael Floos, what's happened here?
Again, as you said before, back end just gets away mid-corner and he loses it onto the grass. Manages to recover quite well, though. But there is just constant battling all over the place. Look at this from Hugo Preto, now the PRT esports machine with Dennis Roeder just behind. Oh, gets a bump in the rear. He covered off in front of Dennis on the brakes, but I'm not sure that was the safest way to go about that. But we saw what Dennis thought of it. Obviously not an intentional little bump, but that's the thing. When you get on the brakes in these cars, they don't half stop.
So yeah, and it's especially... Sorry, I was just going to say, it's especially difficult going through turn one where you're always turning the wheel whilst braking, and that's a real skill that the drivers have been able to develop in practice. But when you're in the race situation, sometimes just a small little misjudgment, and we can see exactly what happened there, just a little bit of a contact there.
Yeah, that's it. Just the tiniest of touches can make all the difference. Looking back now from Hugo Preto at Carlos Olv in the Banzu RX Flow machine. Onto the banking, a wonderful sight as well, especially racing at night at Daytona. This is mega stuff. Now just behind Carlos is Alvaro Melendez, who we're on board with now, and he is chasing around the oval section of the circuit. You can see that there from Carlos just looking down the inside as Alvaro closes in, the back end gets away, and that's what I was talking about. When you have to adjust your inputs on the way into a corner, especially somewhere as scary like the bus stop, the back end can just try and kill you off. Further up the order, this is still going on. Ramez Azam is second. Peter Zuber is right there behind him. There he is. And then his two teammates absolutely hounding Dan Kraft in the Pure Sims esports car. But all of this time, Ed, Mivano Sim Racing's Maxime Brient is 2.1 seconds to the good with a bit of traffic between them.
I was about to pick up on that, actually. Maxime Brient, he has really started to check out at the front. He's allowing the likes of Ramirez Zazao and Peter Zuber to all just squabble a little bit behind him and clear on off down the road. You can see, though, the spread of the field just for a second there. Well, so who was that exiting stage right there? That was
Hans Blancar.
That was a funny moment there. That's Hans Blancar. Oh, no, tragedy. He was just having to try and avoid maybe contacting with the car in front, which he did do, but in doing so, ended up spinning out. And this is Pablo Prado, who seemingly had a bit of a moment, maybe exiting the International Horseshoe.
There's just so many moments going on here. This is... Oh, Joanso Oval. Who is that coming through the middle? Not very strong. Accident avoidance, not the best rejoin either. Bit of a scrappy moment for a couple of them there. And then we just had, like you say, Ed, Pablo Prado trying to avoid the incident in front. And again, it's one of the red and black cars again. I need to find out who that is, but yeah, they've certainly made they've certainly made a name for themselves in not really slowing down for incidents already. But it happens. We've all been there. We've all done it. It's probably not a trend. It's probably just us making trends in our heads. But what a fantastic battle going on here. Now, in the amateur class, I believe, here it is, my favourite livery in the field, the exothermic racing car of James Ebram. Leading the way, bit of movement here and there. It's the Fuel Tech Esports team. Arthur Figueiredo, the Triple One. I think he's in at least the same livery as one of the guys that was guilty of not really slowing down for an incident earlier. The car doesn't look too damaged. But, frantic stuff already, but 2 hours of this, I don't know if my body can cope with this, Ed, but it's mega. I love it.
It's all happening at the moment, isn't it? Maybe they'll calm down, or maybe not, because Jacob Money there on the outside getting passed by, I believe that was Timothy Hayden. No, that was, I think, Fernando takes area in the Fuel Tech Esports car, just trying to go around. Now he's going to go the long way around the outside for the King. Is he going to get the inside then for the second hairpin? No, he's not. He's going to have to back out of it. But look at that, Jacob Money outbrakes himself, seemingly snags the rear, has a bit of a twitch, and then has to go on a bit of a rallycross moment. Not what these LMP2 cars are designed for. Rejoins the track, stays well out of the way of the racing line, but then there's a bit of a bump going on there between the two cars there. The number 30 car colliding with, I believe that was the 40 car, Christopher Stahl, getting a bit of a friendly bump from Carlos Olv.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a tap under brakes. I'm sure he won't be too pleased with that there, but now he's got the Iridium car of Daniel Andres going through as well. Daniel's actually going to try and make it past Pablo Prado as well. Two Banzu RX Flow cars in front of him, going for gold. I was going to say, though, Jacob going off definitely wasn't on the money, but look at that. Oh, we've got a car off, but side by side through the bus stop's messy. We've got, I'm trying to get him. There he is, Enzo Carvalho. Oh, that's not. Oh, as rejoins go. And don't let it roll back, Sunshine. Oh, as rejoins go, Enzo. I think he just lost it on his own, avoiding the guys in front. Yeah, he just slowed it up. Back end maybe got a bit loose. But then you need to be more patient on your rejoins. Straight through, across the racing line. I don't know what the 33 could have done there, to be honest. That's Cohen Mulder, the privateer. Such a shame. But still, it's frantic stuff. You're going to see these moments in this sort of racing. A lot of the time, we can easily sit here and say, just think about it, but when you're in the moment, you just crack on with it, don't you? Alvaro Melendez has now had an issue. Seems like a race of replays at the moment. Oh, just, again, back end goes around on that Iridium car. These things certainly look like I mean, they're a handful at the best of times, but certainly this evening they look very, very lively, don't they?
Yeah, I think they have their setups maybe with a little bit more looser on them. It gets them sort of quicker lap times, and maybe they might be adapting some of the setups they were using before the Daytona 24 just a week earlier. But it seems to me that if they had these setups on for the Daytona 24, I don't know if they would have got very far. So I think getting set up for a 2-hour quick little dash, I say quick little dash, it's quite a long while, and I'm certain that we're going to be able to see plenty more thrills this race as we're following. This is Burkhard Maring now trying to catch up and pass Daniel Kraft. But Daniel Kraft has got his own little fight to worry about with Peter Zuber, who himself has his own little fight to think with Ramez Azam and all of this time, as we were mentioning earlier, just in the front of our shot, just at the top there, going through the kink, Maxime Brienne has got a nice healthy gap.
Yeah, be very, very pleased to have broken away 3.5 seconds to the good at the minute. And to be fair, around here, it's very, very important, isn't it? Because you've got to think about the slipstream most of the time. It's not easy to break out of slipstream on a circuit like this. We would show you the gap time, but to be honest, when we have the intervals and things like this, look, it just
it's a bit bad.
It's not pretty. It's really not pretty. I'm going to try and do it so we can have it like this. You can see the gap from everybody back, but I think there is a way of doing it where it's in sectors rather than constant. But we'll have to figure that out. I have seen a thing of doing that before, but yeah, as we go on, I will try and implement that for you just so we can include it, of course. It's always good to give guys as much info as we can. But this battle is now side by side. Zuba has got the run around the outside of Ramez Azam. 5 different nationalities in the top 5. Maxime Briant, the Frenchman. Peter Zuba from Hungary. Ramez Azam, the Canadian. Dan Kraft from the United Kingdom. And then Burkhard Mehring and his teammate Alexander Walton, both from Germany. They're followed by 2 Italians, a Hungarian, a Brazilian, a Romanian, a Spaniard, a Brit, an Australian, a Portuguese driver. It's just fantastic spread of international drivers here. And I believe that, you know, the time of day these guys do this at, it's 3 p.m. in their time that it starts in the United States. So really, a lot of the European countries, it's only about 9 p.m. now, and it'll be about 11 when it finishes. So it works out really well for all continents at the moment, doesn't it, I'd say?
I mean, I don't imagine what time it could be for Bart Horston there, the Australian driver for Iridium Motorsports, because it's probably going to be in the small hours of the morning by the time this race is over with for the Iridium Motorsports driver. Doing very well, though. Exactly, showing no signs of fatigue or tiredness. Got a healthy little margin as well between himself and Augustin Blanco further behind. He's around about 8/10 back is the Spaniard, but we can't quite see him in shot, which I guess displays how quick these LMP2s are. That gap there would be what, a second, maybe 2 seconds in something like a Mazda, but these LMP2s, that's well under a second.
It is indeed. Just had an issue for Drew Lloyd. Oh, locks up the race. That's a very pretty livery you've got there, Drew, but showing us in that form is not the probably not the best way to advertise it, to be fair, but nice recovery. Gets going again and cracks on. Bart Horston still in 14th position. But this is still going on. We'll go on board with Dan Kraft. He's got Burkhard Mehring right behind him, but right in front is Ramez Azam. Great to see the visibility as well here at Daytona. Obviously, it is lit around the edge. It's not the darkest of circuits when you come to race here at night, but at the same time, visibility isn't massive, and it all seems a bit frantic when it goes dark, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does a little bit, but it also allows us, especially with the floodlights, to see the liveries and see the way that the spec maps, I know you, Chaz, and myself included, we love a nice spec map as Daniel Craft runs a little bit wide going through the left-hander, but collects it back up. Does he lose that much touch to the cars in front? Not particularly. Is he under threat from Burkhard Mehring behind? Not particularly either. They're all trying to work together, and I think, as you mentioned, Chaz, it's a long race. I think strategy could be coming into effect. They're saving a bit of fuel, maybe also looking after the tyres, seeing if they can stretch them maybe an extra stint or so. And of course, if you're able to save fuel, that means your last pit stop might not be as long, or you could maybe even negate a last pit stop entirely.
Yes, very true. Very true indeed. I mean, I am intrigued to see how many stops we get out of this. This is Justin Young as Jose Buizan is going very slowly down the back straight. What has happened to Jose here, actually? It looks like he's gone off circuit through the kink. Oh, that was a big, big moment, and that's going to be a big hit into the wall. That was a massive, massive hit. Now, I'm not really sure what to think of that moment there. We'll have good old Chopper Boy out, and we'll pick this apart, because as you can see, Buizan's going over to the left. Car clearly wants to go down the inside, but he's sort of heading slightly to the inside, and the other car just late on the brakes. I'm not really sure that was either of their fault, really. Just close racing in cars that change direction very quickly and suddenly brake very quickly. So that's just part and parcel of P2 racing. But look at this train here. Fantastic. That's Molnar Peter at the back of it in the Impulse racing car. But he's got all of these P2s in front of him. Look at that shot as they go onto the banking.
Oh, Molnar Peters, he's in the pound seats, isn't he? You can see all the action up in front, and that probably gives him all the visibility he needs. But of course, he'd rather be higher up the order, trying to get past Mergim Aliou in the VLX Esports car just ahead. Going to go on board with him through the bus stop now, lifting off rather early, saving a lot of fuel there, Molnar Peter, but he doesn't lose hardly any time because of that slipstream.
Yeah, it's very true. I was broadcasting the Scandinavian GT series last night. Everybody driving the Mercedes-AMG GT3, and the amount of dipping of the clutch that there was, especially at Spa-Francorchamps, was unbelievable. Now, someone you'd expect to know about saving fuel would be Fuel Tech Esports team if you had to go off their name, but we'll have to see whether that comes true. Oh, unfortunately, Mr. Bunn has had another issue. That's into turn 6, a little bit hot, locks it up on the brakes, and Matt Spun is the name that I know a lot of his teammates will be calling him. Cohen Mulder has also had an issue, which we'll go back and have a look at, in the Red Bull liveried number 33 machine. Very apt. He's pulled it over. I'm not sure whether something else has happened. That's a very sudden jump to the pits. And Ivo Loebscher has also had an issue where he's had to pull the car over as well. So, bit of attrition so far in this race, but mega stuff. I mean, this battle from second all the way down to ninth is just so enticing. And really, I think we have to say, though, as much as we don't want to sound boring, I think fuel saving is the name of the game here at the minute, this early on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing the liveries coming in now, and this is a nice little livery from Luca Fioravanti, the privateer driver. Look at that nice black livery shining in the night, and then it sort of works actually quite well with the sort of the decal layer they have with the orange on the boards mixed one with the blue. Complements it very nicely. Do you reckon he planned that being in the pro class?
I'd say so. Yeah, it looks very, very pretty indeed. I'm pretty sure that is his team's livery, but I remember that he when we get, basically, for all the information you see on the overlay, everybody, we get given the drivers' names, what team they're driving for, where they're from, etc., what class they're in. And when we got sent this, Luca's team name was down as not sure, we'll check. So I figured that putting privateer was probably better than that. We haven't had an update on that part, so I imagine that's down to Luca, but fingers crossed, if he sees the broadcast, he'll let the guys know. But
maybe that's his team name, not sure, we'll check team.
That's very true, because we do have Enter Name Here Racing. Wow, what a livery as well. On Christopher Damcola's livery there is just absolutely striking. Number 69 car as well, nice. Always bringing attention to himself, it seems. Hopefully he doesn't do that too much here with the number 3 of Pablo Prado. Doesn't do so, but another fantastic battle going on. I'll go on board, actually, see how it looks from Christopher's point of view. A little bit deep into the international horseshoe there for Pablo. These two cars, though, in different classes at the minute. Leader of the AM class, I believe, is James Hybrim, and if it's not, then I apologise, but from what I was given earlier, I think, was it Hugo Preto that was in the... a bit of a moment there. Hugo Preto was apparently in the AM class, but he's got pro number boards on the side. So we'll have to run through and check. Oh, league admin EJ Filner has gone off the circuit. What's happened here? Well, something's not quite going right for EJ here. Number 13. Unlucky 13 for him, it seems. Oh, that's a bit hot into the horseshoe as well. It's scary when you're getting used to these cars. And to be fair, even after you've driven them for a long time, they are still hard to get right lap after lap, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I will admit I don't drive these cars too much. I'm more of a GT driver, but when the car first came out, I was all over it like a rash. It's such a fun car, so rewarding as well when you get it right. Which, you have to say, all of these drivers in this fight for second place, and all the drivers, to be fair, all the drivers that we've seen so far have been able to really get a good handle on the LMP2 at the moment. But look at this, they're all queuing up behind Peter Zuber. I don't know if they're actually all faster than him. They might just be staying there with the slipstream and sort of using him as a punch through the air to save fuel, then getting past him in the pits.
Well, that's it. You save the fuel, you can go an extra lap, you can then jump them in the pits, or you try and pit the lap before them. It's such a mind game in doing these sorts of leagues and these events. It really can just go one way or the other. We do have an updated team name for Luca, by the way. It is DRS Wave Italy. Thank you very much to Mr. Nominee in the chat for letting us know. Or no mine. I apologise if I've got your name wrong, mate. I'm a commentator. We're good at getting names wrong. But this is so interesting to see these guys pretty much holding position at the moment. But if I was them, I'd probably be doing the same thing. There's no point just pushing to go for... Never mind. Dan Craft then trying to take 2 for 1. Dan Craft around the outside sees the opportunity. Beautiful stuff from the Pure Sims esports driver. Car 22 goes to P2 in an LMP2. Wow. That... It's like he hit a boost button there. The thing just flew in the slipstream, didn't it? I think it was the moment that Rames just backed off in the slipstream. Daniel just absolutely flying. Look at this.
Look at him, he effortlessly dips out to the right-hand side, got so much speed. I can't quite see how much he was going, but I did notice before that the drivers were topping out at about 330 kph going into the bus stop, so might be going even quicker there. It's immensely fast, these LMP2 machines, yet he was still able to get it stopped in time for the first corner. Great control on the brakes there from Daniel Craft, and now we're going to be seeing if he can either pull away or maybe weather the storm from the guys behind. Meanwhile, though, we're going to go back to Christopher. We were following him earlier. He's, I think, actually managed to get back ahead at least, with Pablo Prado.
And just behind him is Mauro Prado as well. So both the Prados chasing down Christopher in the Banzu RX Flow machines. 2 of them very shiny indeed. We've got Tom Osterman in the chat asking if that was Nitro. It pretty much looked like it was, to be fair, didn't it? Here's Ajibola Lawal. That's a very pretty livery as well. Venom. Scuderia Gunners with Iridium Motorsports Bart Horston behind, but just in front, that's Robert Edouard. We've got Maxime Briant, race leader in the pits already. First one to blink, and Roberto Edouard has also gone in too, but that's interesting from Maxime to be the first car in, which promotes Dan Craft into the lead with traffic. Oh,
he's trying to thread the needle either side of the 2 cars. One of the cars has exited off onto the grass, really wanted to avoid getting caught by the faster classes, and a slight lift from one of the back markers there. He's on the outside. This is really sketchy, really a little bit maybe nervous from some of the drivers trying to get around. Is this going to be what spreads out this fight? Is this going to start to make this one large pack we saw?
Oh,
maybe
it's contact.
Who's that off?
Alley-oop.
Oh, that's a 58. That's Aliou. Oh, and he does a little alley-oop off into the grass.
He does indeed. And he's not going to be merging back on track anytime soon by the look of it either. Sorry, Aliou. Let's see how this went for him. So the 15 on the left-hand side. Oh, he comes over to the right, and the VLX Esports car gets an absolute smack. He's very lucky not to hit the wall, but unfortunate lack of awareness there from the lapped car. But, you know, again, I sit here and it's very easy for me to sit here and say that sort of thing. But when you're going as fast as you go in these cars and how quickly they react and move around and the direction change, it's not easy to do at all, is it, mate?
Yeah, and especially with this massive car grid, we have 55 cars in the pack of I think 7 or 8 of them all going through there at once. The iRacing spotter can sometimes get a bit confused, so he might have gotten the clear call on board, and then he went to move to the right, but there was actually a car there, so that could, I suppose, be a reason. But it's very unfortunate for the driver that was sent off, Aliou there. I'm not sure where he is at the moment. I think he's still quite far down the ODS, down in 11th place, but might be coming into the pits very soon, as we've seen several drivers like Peter Zhu, Alexandra Walton, Luca Fioravanti as well, all making their way into pit lane, and that's allowed Daniel Craft to get a bit of clear out in the front of the race. Meanwhile, though, Maxime Briant, he's coming around through the first corner. He's already coming into pits, and he came into pits a lap earlier than most of them as a result of not really having anyone to slipstream. He had complete clear air in front of him, but that meant he was using much more fuel than those following.
He did indeed. And that car just behind him there, I believe, is Robert van den Heuvel in the Holy Cow Racing machine who's just coming out of the pits. I was wondering whether that was anybody who was fighting on track, but Maxime Briant really on the pace at the minute now after that stop. That was a 132.28 as his best. The next best by anybody else is a 132.49 by Dan Craft. So Maxime's best 2/10 clear. Obviously, the last lap he did included a pit stop, so it's no indication at the moment. By the way, guys, if you do want to follow live timing, I'll pop a link into the chat now. A bit of warning before you do use that. Basically, whichever car we're looking at on screen as the top 4 come in the pits, whichever car we're looking at on screen is where the gaps and intervals are calculated from. So you may see them jump around a little bit, but that's basically wherever we are doing that from. So Dan Craft is sat in the pits. Brienne is coming round the banking now. Usual pit stop time is about 25 seconds, and they've got about 15 seconds of that left currently. So by the look of it, Ed, Maxime's going to jump them and somewhat else as well. He's going to fly by.
Yeah, exactly. He was around about 6 or so seconds out of Peter Zuber before coming into the pits, and that gap is now 7 between himself and Zuber. Look, Daniel Craft has now only just gotten moving, so we're going to have to see, is Daniel Craft going to be passed by Peter Zuber? You can see just going through the first corner now. I think there is Peter. They're going to be coming out side by side into the International Horseshoe, are they? Oh no, Daniel Craft just is able to get ahead. He's going to be on the outside, and yes, can take the normal racing line. So drivers, they've been fighting quite a lot out on circuit, and by my mark, they're just before the half-hour mark, which means we're going to expect to see them in again just before the hour. And when will we be seeing them taking tyres? None of the drivers, I believe, have taken a fresh set of boots, so they're all running on the same tyres they started the race on, and they might be starting to feel a little bit of wear coming into play now.
Bart Horston had a 1 minute and 5 second pit stop. Christopher Damkola also had a 35-second pit stop. Only 15 seconds from Jacob Money. So I'm wondering what some of these guys are doing in terms of their strategy, because there does seem to be a big variation in pit stop times at the minute. Oh, there's Hugo Preto getting a bit of help. Oh, and that's not going to help. That was a massive smack in the rear. And the car looks like it's got the left rear is completely broken. It doesn't want to rotate. It doesn't want to go anywhere. It needs to just get that car off the circuit. It needs to just face the music. Stop. Don't keep sitting there revving it. Just hold escape. Get out of the way. He's not helping his or anybody else's cause there. Yeah, and he's finally realised. But that was a massive shame by Hugo. We saw that he had that moment, although we're going to have to go a bit further back for it than that. He got the tap there. Oh, a bit of a kiss off the 96. Went around, and who was it that collected him? I think it might have been... Where's he gone? No, it wasn't Melendez. I was just trying to have a look down the list, but yeah, real shame there for that to happen, but this is the close racing we've got. And the thing is, when you've got somebody following you that closely, you sort of expect them to hold back a little bit, but it seemed like there wasn't much of that there, unfortunately, from the car behind.
Yeah, it's really tricky, though, I suppose, when you've got a 2-hour race. You're 1 hour 30 into it. Oh, who's that going off wide? That's Burkhard Maring. He's lost 1 place. He's lost 2 places. Will he lose a 3rd? Yes, he will. Luca Fioravanti coming by as well. And that just shows what one mistake can cost you when you're fighting in such a close fight. A little misjudgment can lose you quite a big handful of places. We're going to see exactly what happens here. Just takes a little bit too much speed into the corner, locks up with the right front, and then has to take to the grass and rejoins the circuit there, but loses quite a few positions and also, more importantly, quite a lot of time.
Yeah, that's it. Over a race that's 2 hours long like this, track position is very key indeed, but it's all about spending as little time as possible in the pits and losing as little time as possible over the run when you're out there on circuit, especially when you're going to have to pit as many times as these cars will over 2 hours. You've got Arthur Figueiredo just going past Augustin Blanco into the bus stop. These Fuel Tech cars have really been flying indeed. There's the other one just behind, but Augustin Blanco, that's actually a lapped car behind him there. The 153 machine of Jose Buizan, who we saw was very quick earlier. He's just trying to chase him down at the moment. But this is the thing, when you've got pace and you're a lap down, it's a very difficult situation to be in, isn't it? Because you want to try and unlap yourself, but unfortunately, it's not always that simple, because you could be interfering with the race for a position in a different class, or even obviously just on a lap ahead.
Yeah, and that's where we're seeing this. The length of the race is really starting to come into the equation now, with already some lapped cars throwing themselves into the mix. We've just seen, though, Pablo Prado getting passed by Roy Masset. Nice livery there from the CCTS Esports car. Look at that, the nice chrome on the front, and then blending into gold and black at the rear. You've got a bit, Chaz. That's a nice, lovely spec map paint.
It is indeed. Humongous fans of spec maps here at Sim Racers World TV. Got an issue for Tim Allman, and it is going to be a big red F as he goes around. That's a proper spin down there at the second horseshoe. Gets it into gear, and he's going to spin up the rears and crack on again, but that's a proper loss on the way in. Oh, that looked like a little bit of a tap there. Oh, there was an extra big tap. Something's gone on at turn 1. I think Ryan Donaher has gone off. The 73 Apex Tech racing car, that's gone in a bit hot. It's going to go around, and that was the noise that we heard. The unmistakable noise from iRacing, isn't it, Ed, of a car hitting a wall?
Yeah, it's always worrying as well when you're actually in that car and you hear that noise when you're in a, say, a fight. If you're going 2-3 wide, you hear that noise, you're like, oh dear, here you go, and then that noise is almost immediately followed by death. So thankfully that wasn't too big of an incident, just taking himself out of the equation. Meanwhile though, going on board now with Lowell and the Scuderia Gunners car, the nice little Venom livery we saw from the outboard shot, but now he's setting his sights on the Simsa Esports driver, Roberte Eduard, further up in front, the Romanian driver, doing very well with himself, up into the top 10, currently up 3 places from his starting order.
And this is just for my sanity. I've obviously noticed that Lowell doesn't have a decal layer on there, but I'm going to just look down the next handful of positions just to see if we do have any other mix-ups of classes, because I want to just, if Ibrahim does lead the AM class, then I don't want to sort of call it wrong. I want to make sure it is him, but it does seem that way at the minute, based on the decal layers. So the exothermic racing machine, one of my favourite liveries out there, absolutely top of the class at the minute. Tobias asking if it's a rookie series. It is not, mate. I mean, we have the likes of Maxime Briant in there, absolute superstar within iRacing for Mivano Sim Racing, one of the very best. And if we look at iRating, I mean, Maxine's got 8,500 iRating. I believe all the drivers in this have to have either around or over 2.5, although there's a few further down. I mean, Aaron Mack has got 948, so that throws that theory out the window. But I know that some of the drivers are invitational, from what I understand. But yeah, we do have some amazing talent. I mean, everybody inside the top 6 has pretty much 6,000 iRating, 5.5 for Ramez and his teammate Alexander. But Daniel Kraft, 6,500. Peter Zuber, 6,738 iRating. So some very, very talented individuals with numbers that I couldn't even dream of, Ed.
Yeah, I was certain if you added my numbers and your numbers together, we wouldn't even make half of Maxime Briant's iRating.
Very true. I've got 2.3k.
Oh, same as me. Yeah, I've got about 2.3k. So there we go.
Love it. Lovely stuff. We've got a nice little chase going on here between the P21, Carlos Olve, trying to chase down Justin Young. But I was going to say before the night he's young, but it seems like it's getting lighter again here. So we're going into daylight, which will be lovely, a nice transition for the race. And they have to think about the sun positioning as well, because if you do have certain effects turned on in iRacing, or if, there's nothing effect based on that for Carlos, gets back going again. Needs to be careful on the rejoin, Sunshine. These guys haven't been watching any videos on rejoins, have they? Scary stuff, scary stuff. Oh, a bit of a wiggle there from, who was that trying to get past the car? That was, I think, Jacob Money, just having a bit of a scary twitch on. Oh my word, they're going to be going 3 wide into the bus stop. No. Close your eyes, look away. Are they going to make it through safely? Oh no, maybe not, maybe yes. Oh, it's scary stuff here. But look, the 007 car has to take evasive action. Very good job. Unfortunately for Roy Master, he was kind of forced into losing out there. But oh my word, they're still going for it, aren't they, Chaz? They are indeed. These boys don't want to give us a break. I just, as much as I can understand, you can see freebies. Jacob needed to back out there, in my opinion. There's no need to go for that gap. There's so many. Basically, there's so many situations where I see people moving over on a straight, in a straight line, for example, and going for gaps like that. You just don't need to go for. It's 2 hours long, this race. Just have a chill pill, assess every situation you get to, assess every corner, and just take it with a pinch of salt. You don't need to push like mad at everyone. Oh, our AM class leader's around.
Oh, that's massive because look who's just got ahead now. It's Justin Young, who I think has taken charge of the AM class lead. There's another driver there. That's Pablo Prado going by. And yes, Justin Young, the number 42 car, up ahead of now. Oh, James Ebram, though, gets it back because that was Pablo Prado having a little bit of a loosey-goosey moment. But as you were saying earlier, Chaz, now that things have gone a bit mad and then calmed down again, we're bang on there with where the sun is going to be, because during the Daytona 24, one of my teammates was in sort of the transition from night to day, and because he was in VR, he was absolutely blinded by the rays of the sun and couldn't actually see how to get into all the corners.
Yeah, it can be a real nightmare. If you do have the effects like that turned on, then some of the HDR effects can really give you a massive amount of lens flare and glare in your face, especially in VR, I know, because of the exaggerated field of view. And I've been told, by the way, thanks to Joseph Shanley in the YouTube chat, that any driver that is below 2,500 I rating is basically classed as amateur. Which, to be fair, I was going to say it's brave. That was brave from James Ebram. Maybe a bit, it was a bit desperate down the inside. And to be fair, Pablo Prado got away with it and managed to carry on. But James just, again, you don't need to force the issue with mistakes and moves like that, unfortunately. But I was going to say it's actually quite brave to classify drivers based on iRating. I understand these guys. I think this is EJ who I've been communicating with about this championship. I believe it's the first league they've run, and what a nicely run league as well. You know, they've been so professional with all the decoration of it and the decal layer and everything. It's fantastic. Great to see the caliber of drivers they've got as well. But a lot of leagues, you know, basing classes just off iRating. I mean, look at me. I've done one official race in the last 13 months. My iRating probably doesn't reflect my pace, but there are a lot of drivers out there that are the same. And, you know, some people just do league racing. I mean, Matt Bunn, for example, who we saw before, when I first met Matt on iRacing, he had 800 iRating, as Andy Spicer has put it into the wall. He's off in the herbs. But Matt Bunn had, like, I think it was less than 1,000 iRating, which is considered not much, in all fairness. And, you know, he's quicker than most people that I race against in leagues. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, but quite a brave one. But when you see that Justin Young, Prado, Money, Ulf, Winters and Massett are together with a lot of the pros ahead of them, it works at the minute, doesn't it?
Yeah,
no offence, EJ, or anybody in the league that organises it that is watching. I don't mean that as a dig or anything, but I just, based on experience, I'm intrigued to see how that works so well, but it certainly does at the minute. So, mega stuff.
Definitely, and I'm in the same boat as you, Chaz. My iRating definitely, I don't think, reflects my pace, because I don't know if I still am. I'm classified as a silver driver in the Sim Races World BMW Trophy, and in the first race of the season, I somehow managed to snatch a win. So, don't know if I'll be silver for much long, but that perfectly describes sort of the difficulties you can get with trying to classify drivers that don't race officials that often, whereas the likes of Justin Young and all of these lot here from about 19th down, they've done an absolutely sterling job with the classes, and it's allowing us to see such great racing here and exciting little battles everywhere we're looking. Though for me, I think really excited just to see how the fights are going to form, especially towards the front end of the field here, as we're seeing Lawal here in the Scuderia Guna's car under pressure a little bit from Robert Edouard. He managed to get through, I think, because he was actually chasing the Romanian driver, and now actually has his sights set on Timothy Hayden. There was a back marker just getting out of the way through turns 2 and 3 there. But I'll tell you what, this is really shaping up to be an exciting fight, because Robert Edouard, he's not wanting to give up this position without a fight. No,
definitely. And that's the thing. These drivers have all got so much fight in them. I love it. They just don't want to give anything up at all. Jacob Money back in the pits. He obviously had a very short stop earlier. Here's Stephen Hatter for Gallo Manco. That's a lovely livery in itself as well, to be fair. Another lovely spec map with the metallic teal down the top of the side. What would you call that bit? It's like the side pod, essentially, isn't it? The top of the side pod. A little bit of a wiggle. Obviously, the lights being flashed from Prado just behind him. We all know that flashing the headlights gives you 15 brake horsepower more. That's just a hidden little secret in iRacing, of course. But here in the TPI Cinema Daytona 120. We are 42 minutes of the way through. I do not have a single clue before you ask me where that has gone. But there's still battles all over the place, and this is exactly what we want to see. This is Roberto Edouard for the Simsa esports machine, just trying to get the better of Ibola Lawal. That Venom car does look good. It looked better with a decal layer on it. But that's maybe me not saving it correctly. You know what I'm like. I'm a stickler for it, but I make mistakes more than anybody else, as both of them go quite hot into turn 1. But Ibola, to be fair, really holds on to that quite well. I thought he was going to go a bit deep there, Ed, but again, the capability of this car still catches me off guard.
Yeah, definitely. They're quite agile, quick, nimble things where they need to be, but you can see how wide Ibola is trying to make his LMP2 Dallara machine. Look at that, he was defending hard but fair, it has to be said, into the International Horse Show. Again, holding the inside line for turn 6, not wanting to give the inside whatsoever to Roberto behind. And now he has to slip back onto the racing line, trying to get a good run out of the corner. But all of this fighting, all of this defending has allowed Timothy Hayden to disappear further up the road. And that has left Ibola without any toe whatsoever. So we're going to see just the effect of it now. Roberto Edouard is going to close very closely now on the rear shot. We can just see brilliant camera work there, Chaz, how close he's able to get now alongside. We're going side by side into the braking zone. I think he's already clear through into the bus stop. That just shows how much the straight line speed and how much the slipstream really helps. But now look, this is Roberto's time to look behind him, because Ibola, he's going to want to get it back.
He is indeed closing on the back of the car in front. He's going to go round the outside. How close are they together? There he is. You can see the sun rising in the background as well. Lovely stuff. And then back in front again. Oh, cuts the nose off Roberto's car, flashes the lights. He wants to store that KERS and get the 15 brake horsepower more. But no, he won't be very pleased with that. A little bit of corrective oversteer as he's on the power. He's flashing the lights again. But yeah, that was a little bit naughty there from Lowell, you could say. But at the end of the day, this is such close racing, and this is what we love as Carlos Olve comes into the pits.
Yeah, Carlos Olve now in from 21st place. The Banzu RX Flow car was up actually in, I think, the podium places in M class. So we're going to see at the end of this little pit stop race. Oh, he's overshot. It's easily done here at Daytona. I've done it many times in the 24, but that was my excuse, was that the pit box was right just after the line for the limiter. So I'm not sure what his excuse might be this time around. Meanwhile, Daniel Kraft, he's not got quite an easy time of things in second place. Peter Zuber's behind him by about half a second. Has been closing as the laps have gone by. So we'll see how the fight develops further on into the race, because we're only just now past the 45-minute mark.
We are. I can't believe how quickly this race has gone already, though, to be fair. Absolutely flies by. Yes, I just want to notify as well, I am trying to work on getting the timing to update bit by bit so we can see the intervals lap by lap as this continues. Lowell and Edouard. Is Lowell going to do the same again? He does. Cuts the nose off. Yep, Roberto does flash the lights again. Or gets a bit closer to the brakes. Roberto is going to try and get the run in the Simsa esports car. But a fantastic battle all the same. You know, Roberto will maybe not be too impressed with him going across his nose, but at the end of the day, he's not doing it on the brakes. They're still doing it when they're flat out, aren't they? So that makes the difference in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what is written in the handbook, as well as that blocking is a move, I think, just into the braking zone when the car behind is already trying to slow down. This is done well before, like you mentioned, the time when they're able to brake. But look at the damage, actually, that Ibola has. The left-hand side, the left rear is shot up into the air as Roberto outbrakes himself massively. He locks up both fronts, does well to avoid contact with Ibola, though. So the only thing that was really lost there was time from Roberto Edouard.
Yeah, it looked to me like he was about to have a little bit more damage added to the car there, but still got away with it. It's close between Kraft and Zuber. You wouldn't think it by that shot, but there you go. Zuber now really on the chase here for second position. Dan Kraft doing a sterling job. Ex-teammate of mine at CQR Club. CQR became Pure Sims mid-2020. Double British Touring Car champion Ash Sutton spearheading that. and they have an immense amount of talent in that team. Their Lamborghini made it to the top split of the Daytona 24 hours with a couple of their drivers, and there's actually a clip, I think it's on Twitter and on Twitch, of one of their drivers, I think might have been Pablo Munoz, I'm sorry if it isn't, boys, but one of their drivers basically had a local earthquake going on and basically still continued to drive. His level of commitment was absolutely unmatchable that day, so fair play to the lad. Carrying on in Daytona 24 despite an earthquake.
Exactly, yeah, the Pure Teams boys, they are definitely something else. There's one in a series I commentate, the BSR Pro Series, the MX-5s, that I think you're very familiar with as well, Chaz. Is Pete Newman. He's really taken that championship by storm when he joined in. I remember seeing his one of his races at Tsukuba. That was, I think, his first race that season, and he managed to win both the first race and I think as well the third, which, as you know, the BSR, it's very difficult with the reverse grids to try and snatch 2 wins in one evening. Yes,
it is indeed. With reverse grids, certainly makes it a difficult task. Just away from this, we've got another duo just behind. This is Merjim Aliou with Arthur Figueiredo just in front. The VLX Esports machine, another very pretty car. This P2 car, there's a lot of real estate to paint on this machine, and it certainly does look very, very wonderful. Some of the liveries these guys do, just awesome. Victor Centelles, Victor Balea, good to see you in the chat, mate. Very, very good to see you. And yes, I am everywhere. I'm a busy boy. Busy boy indeed. I think I've got one broadcast a day, except for one day, over the next 8-9 days, I think. So, yeah, very, very busy in my wonderful little world. But this is another close battle inside the top 10 here. One of your favourite liveries out there at this point, Ed. Luca Fioravanti in the DRS Wave Italy machine. And I'm really loving these conditions, you know, because it's going to make it difficult over this second hour of the race, because now the sun's coming up, the track's going to get hotter, grip is going to go downhill, and of course, tyres are going to be an issue.
Exactly. I'm not sure what the track temp is at the moment, but I'm certain that it will start to rise, so the drivers might try and make these tyres last maybe an extra stint longer, as down the inside Luca Fioravanti goes on the brakes, cuts it through the bus stop, but by making a move into this corner, you leave yourself totally vulnerable, and there we go. Going down up into the tribal section here, the 95 car. We're going to see Molnar Peter there going around the outside in the Impulse Racing car. And he's probably going to get this move done into the brakes into turn 1. So it just shows maybe it's better to bide your time, wait a little bit behind going into the bus stop and then try and power out. But actually, the number 7 car, Luca Fioravanti, he's not wanting to give this up without a fight. Down hard into the brakes into turn 1, trying to trail it through, turning all the way. A slight twitch from the 95 does well to correct it and hold on to it, avoiding contact, but great defensive driving there from Luca Fioravanti there to hold on to 6th place.
And don't forget, we've got Burkhard Maring just watching this now. He had that little moment earlier where he lost just a handful of places, not even that, just a couple. But now he's in the front row seat for this fight going on ahead. Thank you, Mark Elviota. Great to see you as well, my friend. Look at this stuff. Just love the fighting that we get from these sorts of guys. And the thing is as well, I'm going to continue to say this as, oh no, I've just seen it come up, Ed. I'm not sure if you have as well. Ayabolo Lawal and Roberte have had an issue. We're going to have a quick look back at what caused this. It's already gone on in front there, unfortunately. We're going to have to see when they last came on the banking. Oh, it's all when they've changed around here. Apologies, everybody. We are going to find the right one at some point. Here we go. So Roberte's gone in front. He's not going to cut across his nose to prove a point, is he? So this is down into the bus stop, isn't it? Oh no, it's across the trioval. Comes down in front of him. Not as much as Ayabolo had. Oh, he's just later on the brakes. Goes into the side of him. That's such a shame. Neither of them getting clipped or caught up by anybody else, but just maybe didn't need to happen, to be honest. But you're going to see that. Brienne, race leader, back in the pits though, Ed.
Yeah, definitely a slightly needless incident, but we can move ahead, move past that and focus now on our race leader into the pits. The Movano Sim Racing driver comes into pits almost every single time. It's been a lap earlier than the competition. We're going to have to keep our eyes on the likes of Daniel Kraft and Peter Zubu, because they are fighting quite closely with each other for second place, but which has now become first place, of course. And look at the nice paint job on the Movano sim racing car. It's really coming into its own now. The sun is beginning to shine on it. The nice matte black going well with sort of the nice sort of almost a satinish, not fully chrome, is it? A nice sort of almost gunmetal grey silver colour.
Yes, yeah, it's like a darkened chrome almost. It is a difficult one to describe. I like the idea of gunmetal grey, or should I say bulk gunmetal. Not sure if that'll tick a box or so with you, Ed, but Maxime Briant, 11th at the moment. Holnar Peter still not too far behind Walton. You wouldn't think it, but never mind. It's Maring behind him. Apologies. It's easy to do that with our timing, but look at the slipstream here. Look at the speed of it as well. 320 k's nearly. Now he's holding off. He was backing off a little bit there. Back into fuel-saving mode as Walton and Rodrigo Lazowski go in. Not seen much of Rodrigo, to be fair, in the 225 car. He's been making his way up the order. 4 places gained. Figueiredo's gained 16 positions. He's flying as the Brazilian driver.
Yeah, it just shows what being able to keep consistently keeping out of trouble does for you here in these two races as the Brazilian makes his way into the pits. The 111 car now in the 111, 11th place. We'll see how he's going to slot back, though, when all of the pit stops are made. There's several cars up in front, the likes of Timothy Hayden, Alexander Walton, Rodrigo Lisowski. There's plenty of drivers into the pits now. Meanwhile, up in front, this is the battle for what is currently 4th place, but will almost certainly be shuffled around when the pit stops come into effect. Molnar Peter just ahead of Burkhard Maring in this Simsa Esports car, and these are two of the very best liveries here on display, aren't you? You've got the typical Simsa white and orange and black, and then of course the Impulse Racing sort of white, blue and black. They go so well together with each other, and it's good to see a pair of them fighting close on track, even if Burkhard Maring is maybe managing his race a little bit, saving a bit of fuel at the moment. Yeah,
they certainly do have to think about the long game here when they're going over this.
Ooh.
Hello. I don't think that was the easiest of things to do. I'm going to just try something here, everybody, because I am starting to try this. Now that's slowed it down, hasn't it, in terms of how quickly that's updating. So I'm hoping that we can maybe slow this down even further and just get you guys some information that's a little bit easier to read, maybe. Because let's face it, that's one of the main things here. You can see the gaps. We'll give you... Oh, that sounded like a big off for somebody. Let's have a look who that was. Although I can't see anybody going off, actually. But Brian back at the top of the pack again here now. And look at that. He has got 6.2 seconds over Daniel Kraft, not 34. I think if we need to do it by interval, not gap. Or if we do... There we go. There's your total. So you can see the gap between each car now at that point. That's from the race leader, I believe. I am trying to work on this on the fly there, everybody, so please do bear with me. But as you can see, the gap 6.2 seconds and opening up as well between Briant and Dan Kraft. But he's flying high at the minute. He's doing a wonderful job, isn't he, Ed? He's not got too much pressure now from the cars behind, so he doesn't need to worry too much at this stage.
Yeah, he did build out the gap, did Dan, actually, through the pit stop phase, but for how long? Because maybe if these two drivers work together, Ramez Azam and Peter Zuber, if they sort of trade draft a little bit, or even maybe you could get away, if you're lucky, with a bit of friendly bump draft, they can catch back up to the Pure Sims esports driver up in front. And then this big fight we saw at the beginning, it was a almost 5-7 car fight for second place. It's seemingly spread out, but I think come the end of the race, it'll start to close up again, and we'll be seeing plenty more exciting racing that we did in the first 10 or 20 minutes so far, though. But look at how close Ramez Azam is getting. He has the opportunity to send a move if he wants to, but look, he's not really going for it. The overspeed was there, and then all of a sudden, you notice it comes to a dead stop because Ramez Azam lifts out of the throttle, manages to save a little bit of fuel lifting and coasting, and then works it all the way back down on the sort of the back stretch of the circuit.
It's such a difficult circuit to get right lap after lap as well. It is quite a long lap as Daniel Kraft has had an issue. Oh, back end completely locks up, and that's what, well, that's what's dropped him down, I'm afraid. I do apologise, Ed, if you did catch that before me, but I'm trying to work on that bit by bit at the moment, and we do have at least a delay on the time, so you can see the gap from the top spot. Please do let me know if that's a little bit better, guys, because I think that's a lot easier to read at the minute. So you can see the updated sector times as they tick over. We've got so many good battles going on track, though. We've reached this bit of the race now, though, where some of them are just getting into a rhythm a bit, aren't they, Ed? Where they're going to just, I don't want to say chill out, because let's face it, there's nothing chill about driving these cars, but yes.
Taking things maybe at 95% instead of 110%, shall we say, because these drivers, they're still throwing the cars, you can see, through the bus stop, and they're starting to think maybe about pushing each other in different ways, maybe some mind games, maybe a little bit of looking at occasionally for moves but not actually going for them, seeing where the drivers are weaker up in front, so then come the end of the stint when they want track position going into the pits, that's when they make the move. But you can see here Molnar Peter slotting in behind, not wanting to put the pressure, and this is where Luca Fioravanti is at the moment. He's up into 5th place, up 4 places. So as well, though, is Molnar right behind. Plenty of drivers making up several spaces. In fact, I'm trying to find out who is the driver that's gained the most amount of places since the start of the race, and I think that honour has to go to the AM driver, Justin Young. Oh no, it isn't. That is Fernando Teixeira, the Fuel Tech Esports team. And apologies, Fernando, if I butchered that name wrong. I'll just think we'll refer to you as Fernando for now.
Yeah, I think it'd be Teixeira. I'm gonna go with Teixeira. If we give him one each, then it'll be fine. Oh no, Aliou has gone alley-oop again, as Ed said before. That's such a shame. He's now merging back on track. I'm sorry, but mate, he's going to get that treatment every single time he goes off. I like the split livery, though. I'm a big fan of a split livery on a race car. It makes it a pain in the backside for commentators sometimes, but we know what we're looking for. Christopher Stahl, I've been asked. Now, normally I'd tell you to go away, and this isn't BBC Radio 2, and I don't do requests. But Christopher Stahl is currently 44th. And the Bull Out Racing 2 machine is 6 laps down at the moment. Oh, Robert van den Heuvel, my mate from the Sunday Drivers MX5 Cup, has had an issue in Holy Cow Racing. Mark Winters in the black and green machine has also had I don't blame him for getting out of that one there. That would have scared the life out of anyone going into the bus stop and having the back end break away.
Look at this though, Carlos Olve just ahead of Drew Lloyd, a battle that's been on in the background and now could be coming to the forefront. The Banzu RX Flow car with Rennie Racing right behind. I wonder if that's after sort of heartburn or sort of heartburn medication. We'll see. I don't think so. It's a nice pink car though, isn't it? You don't often see a nice pink livery out. It's nice, unique, and it really catches the eyes of us here in the comms block. Gets them plenty of screen time as well as this one. The car here, look at this. Lovely in pink. Look at that. I love it. I love a nice little quirky paint job. Really stands out.
Now, I'm not going to say too much on this, but I've recently started doing a livery for somebody in a P2 car, which does include a pink fade that goes to an orange. And it doesn't look too far away from that. So I think I might have to go back to the drawing board with my livery. Not because I don't like that one, but I don't want to look like I'm copying them. But Austin is side by side with, of course, Pablo Prado. The Prados just seem to be involved in everything so far in this race, don't they? It really is fantastic stuff. All over the place. And just looking up and down the order, we have so many battles going on. I'm really trying not to be too sporadic with the camera changing, guys, but honestly, there is so much to look at. This is a sort of racing you love. We're an hour into this race, and you still, I was going to say you don't know who's going to win it, but it's just, there's constant battles, there's constant cars all over the place, and I do want to show a bit of appreciation, not just because he's the league admin, but for EJ's livery there, the number 13 car that was just on the low line. I'm trying to find him in the timing, but it seems that my lazy eyes let me down again. There he is. The Apex Tech Racing livery. What a good looking car that is, of course, following the branding colours that we've got on the overlay. And of course, the sponsors, TPI Cinema, sponsoring this round. This is the TPI Cinema Daytona 120. But yes, that is a very good looking car indeed. I got to take some pictures of them from the practice race. Oh, good save, EJ. Flipping heck. That was the right moment. I hope he's not on direct drive, or he'll probably have no wrists left. But wow, that was a very, very impressive save, especially at low speed, because this car obviously so dependent on downforce. When it comes to mechanical grip alone and slow pace, this car just doesn't want to turn, does it?
Yeah, especially as well, considering what I think, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Chaz, but the pit stops haven't been looking too long, so they might have just been taking fuel and then they're keeping the same tyres on since they started the race, so the mechanical grip that isn't really there that much to begin with is even less. And so great save from EJ. Meanwhile, well, no, I bet he has a blinking LMP2 up in front of him. Bit scary when you're going into the bus stop, but he does well enough to keep his cool and stay behind, save a bit more fuel, following on board with Melendez. You could just see exactly how much he's able to close, and then midway through the oval section just begins to lift out, doesn't start gaining as much, and thinks more about just saving that little bit of fuel, because of course in iRacing fuel saving isn't done on revs, but it's done on throttle position. So he's probably going at about maybe half, or even lifting completely out of the throttle at this stage, going into the braking zone. Yet you can see he loses quite a lot out just from fully lifting the engine braking, doing its work, and then going hard onto the actual brake pedal to slow it down. Really managing the race and thinking about the longer game, though, thinking about saving the fuel, maybe getting rid of a final fuel stop if at all possible, and if not, maybe making sure his last stop is a bit shorter than his competitors.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to think about how much time you can save at every little moment of this race, even if you're losing maybe a bit of time to the car ahead. I mean, look at this right now. Ramez Azam, he's probably not thinking that he can beat Maxime Briant at this point. It's 9.3 seconds from first to second. But Peter Zuber, the car immediately in front of him, that's championship points no matter what way you look at it. So Azam will be assessing this situation and thinking, right, if I can be in the pits for a few seconds less than him, if we pit around the same time, you know, I don't need to put as much fuel in to get to the end, then that could jump me past him, but then it means that he's going to fuel save as well. So there's so much to consider over a run like this. And to be fair, when you're doing all of this and you're driving a car as fast as this while doing the calculations on the fly, I know that some of them have sort of spotters and mechanics that help them out. It's very, very impressive. Dirk Preppy saying, like it to show at the back in the standings and in broadcast. You mean as in, like, look further down? We can try, but when we click on a car further down, it does. There you go. But we can't fill the whole grid, unfortunately, mate. We can't get 55 cars on the screen in that way. Otherwise, it would go way off the bottom of the screen, and it would be pretty unreadable, to be fair. But I'm intrigued, to be fair, Ed. If you were Ramez Azam at this point, and we'll go on board with for a minute and see this wonderful golden sunrise, what would you do right now? Would you push to go past him and see if you can get away, knowing that the slipstream is there, or would you do the fuel saving and just go through this stint in your rhythm?
It depends how Ramos is feeling, how much he feels he's being held up potentially through the infield. If he feels that he's being held up a little bit in the dirty air and is losing more time than he would be losing, say, having clear air, it's very tricky to see, because this strategy is very dependent on what the car in front does. The car in front can also save a little bit of fuel off of back marker traffic up in front, and if you're not able to go that lap longer than the car in front, then there's no real need to stay behind, because you're not going to be able to get that short fuel stop at the end of the race. So we'll see how this race goes. I think Ramos is going to assess it every single time. Maybe towards the end of his stint, he's going to pull the trigger and go for a move and try and build a bit of a gap going into the pit stop phase. But it's going to be very touch and go, I think, between the pair of them in terms of making this strategy work. It requires, like I said, a lot of knowledge in what the car in front of you is doing, and often you don't really have that information available to you.
No, that's it. It's very difficult to find out stuff like that within sim racing, and I think that's one of the beauties of it. You know, a lot of the time in real motorsport, there is actually a lot more access to data and other things from other teams and other drivers than you would imagine. But when it comes to this, we don't get as many visual cues either. That's the thing in sim racing. While I am an absolute advocate for the fact that iRacing is the most natural looking sim in the way the cars bounce and move together from their PC and their sim, broadcasting it to ours and working so flawlessly, we don't get as many visual cues as you would in real life. There's just a few things you can't pick up on. Drew Lloyd has had an issue in the Rennie Racing thing. Oh, big slide by the pair of them. Manages to get it stopped. And that's the thing in this car. You may ruin the tyres a bit doing it, but I'm sure he'd rather do that for a second than hit the wall.
Yeah, definitely, because, well, we got past the 1 hour mark now, so really any things you lose. Oh, who is that? A deliberate move over to just get out of the way?
I think so,
Looked a bit like it. I think Peter Zuber realizes that he's not got enough fuel. Maybe does he have a slowdown? Doesn't seem to cut the final corner the final corner of the bus stop that much. So he seems to deliberately. Or maybe he does. He gets well out of the way. That could potentially be a slowdown that he's getting out of the way and trying to clear.
It didn't look like much of a slowdown, though, did it? That's an intriguing one. I'm excited to see how that pans out. But it seems like if it was, he served it, and if it wasn't, we'll never know. But Molnar Peter still chasing down Luca Fioravanti. And to be fair, he's still got a long way to go yet. As Ed mentioned, we're over the the halfway mark. An hour and 8 minutes, nearly 9 minutes into the race. And things have calmed down a little bit. And I mean, before there were comments on the driving standards, yes, there was a lot going on. There was cars all over the place. There was cars crashing into each other. But let's face it, we've got a 55 car grid here. It's, for a lot of them, it'll be their first time racing against each other as a large grid. I know that the practice race had about 20-something cars in it at the Nürburgring. But in all fairness, Ed, I mean, you and I have both commentated on plenty of league racing by now. And standards come with time, don't they, with leagues? Because all the drivers get used to one another and how they drive around each other and how the cars behave as well. That's the thing. A lot of these drivers, they'll have driven the car over endurance races, such as the Daytona 24, or longer races in things like SCO or NEO. And even in those races, you are in a lot more of a relaxed mindset. You're very much in the let's not push too hard, we need to make it to the end sort of situation. But
yeah,
when it's 2 hours, even that difference in time can change your mindset in cars like this, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been seeing that a lot with my teammates in some of the league races we race in. We go in thinking, all right, the first round is going to be a little bit sketchy. None of the drivers are used to each other. And still the driver standards were awful. But then it's better to take a time out of it. I think maybe just give yourself a bit of a breather. Take about 48 hours since the race, really trying to look back into it and realize, actually, if I was in an official race, it would have been so much worse, Chaz. I know you mentioned you don't do many officials, but I can tell you from my experiences doing officials, the driving standards we've seen are almost look like saintly driving compared to some of the stuff you'd see in official. So I definitely think over time the drivers, once they get used to each other, once they get an inkling of how their competitors attack and defend and all those little intricacies like that, we start to see the racing clear itself up a little bit as we see a replay here of Augustin Blanco trying to go around the outside of Roberto Edouard. This is going into the bus stop chicane. What's going to happen here? Are they going to make it cleanly? Or just about a little bit of a scary moment there. They were going 2 by 2 into the corner, but then Edouard, he picks himself up a slowdown and around the outside goes Alvaro and Augustin.
I wondered why he lost so much time, so I just wanted to have a quick look back. As Christopher Stahl has had a moment as well, and around he goes. IVI 180, one thing we do ask here on Sim Racers World TV is that if there is an issue in the race or if you have an opinion of another driver, is that it doesn't get brought into the chat, please. Just that sort of thing is for league admins and of course for protests and stewards and so on. If you can direct it their way, please. Now look at this, Ed. One of my favourite things about endurance racing, we'll get a better look at it here. The cars are getting mucky and it looks absolutely wonderful. You've got to love these cars. Just you've got to love it as they get further and further into a race like this. And iRacing simulates the dirt and the muck getting up the cars. Just makes them look more like they've filled their purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think we were saying this last time we were in the booth together, wasn't it? For the 24 hours of Zold, the virtual bell cars, the fact that all of the cars, they pick up these little marbles, little bits of rubber getting kicked up. And I was talking about how Toyota, I think after the 24 hours of Le Mans, they always get this sort of like preserving little spray the cars and put them in a museum. So the way the cars were as they crossed the finish line at Le Mans, near enough as they crossed the finish line, are sort of kept that way. And every little scrape, every little marble picked up on the car is a story to tell. And this is, well, maybe a little bit of dirt that can tell a certain story that Ivo has had a bit of an incident there. going into the second hairpin.
Oh, around he goes. Easy to do. We've seen that plenty of times this evening. Positively Racing, and I know that Daniel Handover, is it Absolutely Dan?
Yes, it is
Absolute
actually.
Dan.
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolute Dan. Because I was actually doing a broadcast with him yesterday,
yes.
and it was actually some Positively Racing cars out there on circuit. That was in the Aston GT1, looking very nice though on the Dallara LMP2.
Yes, indeed. I have to come back to this livery, the exothermic racing machine.
Oh,
what a gorgeous looking car. And just in front of, as well, Stage 1 Racing. Now, the untrained eye would tell you that's a Fiercely Forward livery. Black and yellow car with a lion on the side of it. Does look very similar, but still, they have their differences. And to be fair, they're both very striking liveries indeed. Carlos Olve in the pits. Justin Young, by the way, I must say, still leading the amateur class at the moment. 20th place overall. Matt Bunn has recovered, by the way, in the Pure Sims Esports car after some spins earlier. He is now 27th, 6 places gained. We'll show you the gains on the left-hand side, actually, guys. Apologies if the green... No, it is readable. That's fine. I did mess with the colours earlier, and I couldn't test the gains. We've had... Oh, Manuel Winans has just gone off. So the battle we were looking at a moment ago has just suffered from what we call the Chaz curse here on Sim Racers World TV. A lot of commentators do have the commentator's curse, where they just look at a driver or say they're doing well and they go off. My curse is a little strange one, where I'll be watching a battle for like 5 minutes, and then the second I look away from it, one of them will go off or something will happen. It's just as soon as I neglect a battle that's going on track. So I think that's what happened with Ayabola and, of course, Roberte Eduard before, to be honest.
Chaz, could you use that for good, maybe? Could you have a look at our race leader, see if maybe he's going to drop back maybe into the clutches of perhaps the likes of Ramos and Peter Zoo? Because, I mean, credit to Maxime Brient. He has had a really dominant performance so far in this race, hasn't he? He's gotten away, checked out at the front, and got the margin now to 13 seconds. As much as we bemoan the fact that he's got in front, you have to give him a round of applause, just for the way he's driven the race, the way he's been consistently quick as well. It's one thing to be quick over one lap, but to consistently do it lap after lap, especially in these LMP2 cars that can be sometimes temperamental with how they turn in, the amount of speed you can take into the corners. One lap you can take in about an extra 20 k's than you think you should, and then other times it just bemoans you and chundersteers and oversteers on you. So credit to Maxime Brient. He's put in a great job, as we see. Oh, around the outside, Merjim Aliou trying to go around, but not being able to pull it off, and having to maybe worry a little bit more now from Fernando from behind.
Yeah, Fernando Teixeira getting closer and closer. I've been watching the tenths come down. If you look on the left-hand side of your screen as well, everybody, you'll see that there's only 0.8 of a second between second, third and fourth in this race. A little bit more than that at the moment, but yeah, this Fuel Tech Esports team, they've certainly been exciting to watch. Oh, there's a car slow on the outside there, not quite sure who that was. But that in front of us is Merjim Aliou, and then Lawal just ahead of him. So constant battles again, but I think with more pit stops on the way, these guys are going to start to chill out in the midfield a little bit and just maybe stay with their dancing partners as such, as we have it before. Oh, somebody's gone off big time. I think that was Christopher Stahl. Yep, Christopher Stahl has gone off at the International Horseshoe. What happened there? It sounded a lot worse than it looks, to be fair, when you look at the damage. Let's see what happened here. That's the 07 car behind him. Oh, a little bit of netcode involved in that, I think. Oof. That was...
I think every single panel got a bit of bump in there.
Yeah, that was Mauro Prado just behind him. That's another little... I was just trying to see who it was. Just as he gets on the brakes... Oh, yeah, a little bit of netcode. Chaz flipping heck. That's about a foot. And to be fair, these cars seem really sturdy. When you see visually the amount of damage they get, it's quite impressive. So the Bull Out racing car hopefully will buff out when it gets to the end of the evening. We've got Alvaro Melendez in the pits for Iridium, nicely behind the Rolex clock there. Here's Peter Zuber once again. Now I'm intrigued to see that these lights work on the side of the cars. You see the two blue lights on Ramez Azam's car. These are known as the endurance racing lights. Maxime Brient is in the pits. He's got 2 because he's in second, and he's got 3 because he's third. And then Daniel Kraft has got none because he's neither of them. But I love that little detail that works in iRacing. I think that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, we saw that actually on the old Aston Martin and Corvette GT1 cars as well. They have those little lights, so it's beautiful to see that it's also on these LMP2 machines. And of course, in the things like the GT3s, they actually have the number boards, don't they, in the window? So it's much easier for us as broadcasters to see exactly where the cars are on track and call it as we see it. Meanwhile, though, Maxime Briant has taken himself into the pit lane, and Luca Fioravanti has taken himself for a bit of a spin.
Yeah, big slide there. Again, just highlights how difficult these cars are to drive. As your effective race leader on the way back out, you can see the shiny green helmet visor there. His pit stop that time round was 22.5 seconds, so that says to me I've not taken tyres, and I don't think he will until the end. I know that with the shorter stints, some of the guys that I was talking to during the Daytona 24 were quadruple stinting tyres when the conditions weren't very hot, and seeing as we've come from nighttime conditions to morning conditions, I don't think it's that bad at the moment. That's Prado 07. Wow, that was close to the back of Peter Zuber. Dan Kraft won't be too pleased about getting held up behind him there. Mauro needs to get out of the way ASAP, and he's not doing that. Not really helping these guys make a smooth ride through the traffic here, Ed, and that's going to go down, to quote David Addison, like a cup of cold sick.
Yeah, it's not very good, is it, when you see that like it's getting a little bit too big for their own boots, perhaps. But look at this, Daniel Kraft sweeping himself around the outside, and he was able to navigate that rather well, all things considered. Meanwhile, Ramez Azam pulls himself into the pits of the Simsa Esports car that was fighting across for that second place, taking his time in the pit lane. Going to see, though, if these drivers are going to be taking tyres or not. Meanwhile, Timothy Hayden is closing up behind Maxime Briant, who has obviously just come out of the pit, so this isn't a fight for sort of net position, but still, Timothy Hayden, he's going to want to try and fight with Maxime Briant just to show the fact that, yes, I can fight for the race lead. If you weren't off in your own little bubble without the slipstream behind you, maybe this would have been something different.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you are involved in a race like this and you look back at how it panned out, you can always say, oh, I wonder if I had the slipstream at this point, if I didn't have it at this point, would it have been different? As EJ has had... Where is that? That's out of the bus stop, isn't it? EJ has come out of the bus stop there and had a moment. Here he is again, on the way in. To the right, EJ. Proper moment. That'll scare anybody, that will, to be fair. So Peter Zuber has inherited the race lead, as we've seen, the number 9. And Dan Kraft now chasing him down well and truly in the Pure Sims Esports car. We saw from Dan earlier, well, I was going to say he doesn't want to hang around and wait behind the car in front, but clearly...
massively, doesn't he?
Yeah. Great conditions as well. Look at the glint there, the track glowing orange, the rubber shining away on the surface. And I mean, the noise the Stellara P217 makes is beautiful indeed. International horseshoe, plenty of curbs, smooth on the power, a little bit of corrective oversteer, flat out all the way down towards the kink. Now I wonder if he'll fuel save here before the right-hander. No, you can't risk it, can you?
Does trail brake a little bit earlier, I think, so he doesn't quite brake as hard, instead trails it into the corner, allows himself a bit of chance to slam on the anchors a bit more if he feels he's going to collide with Peter Zuber, which is a smart thing to do when you're the car following, is just to start trail braking a little bit more. Meanwhile, though, we're going to see on board, or follow out board actually, I think, with Daniel Kraft, just to see how much he fuel saves going into the bus stop, and if he's actually going to be coming into the pits this time around. The sunlight glinting off the carbon fibre in the cockpit. Look at that, it's a lovely sight to see, but even better sight might be if Daniel Kraft tries to make a move before coming into the pits. No, he doesn't. He actually lifts off massively. I don't even think he brakes. He lifts off that much. He doesn't need to get on the brakes going into the bus stop. He powers his way on out. And these drivers, they've gone, I think, 2 laps already longer than our race leader, Maxime Briant. Are they going to make it even more? Oh, Daniel Kraft going around the outside. So he feels he can keep it going. No, he's not. He's going to come into the pits, but try and get ahead into the pit lanes. This is the race now in the pits between Peter Zuber and Daniel Kraft. They were neck and neck going over the pit speed limiter line, but where will they come out? That's the real big question. And are any of these drivers going to take tyres at the halfway mark, or will they leave it a little bit later?
Yeah, I'm wondering whether any of them will take tyres at all, you know. Very intriguing.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Because
Because I know in the GT3 at least, we were able to triple stint through the night. And I know the GT3s, they have longer stints. Plus, they use the tyres a little bit more than these Dalaras.
yeah, indeed. I'm wondering whether they will actually pit at all. You know, the quality of some of the drivers that we have in this series, I think that they will be able to manage the tyres. I know Maxime Briand, apparently he's going to be tight on fuel at the end, Cine has said in chat. And again, sorry mate if I'm saying your name wrong, is it Sine or Cine? But I think he's right. He said it will be tight on fuel. So I'm intrigued to see what happens. Bart Horston, the world's fastest pit entry here at Daytona. Is he going to lock up? I was going to say, that's going in hot, that is sunshine. It was like coming into land with a few hundred knots too many. Here's James Ibram, or Ibram, however he tells me to say it after this when I get a stern message on Discord. Going past the number 83, just coming out of the pits. He is chasing down Jacob Money. Oh, well, Jacob will be laughing all the way to the bank, won't he, after seeing that in his mirror, you could say.
Oh, God, Chaz, you're awful, you are. Honestly,
the king.
Can't believe you sometimes. But here we go. Jacob Money positively racing, trying to take some positives out of the race. The spin.
Hey.
Oh, a little bit, yeah, indeed. It's been a little bit hectic for him. Meanwhile, Molnar Peter coming in from the race lead. He's been able to really extend his stints now. He might be able to take this pit stop till the end of the race. We'll see exactly how that will happen, though. Molnar Peter coming into the pits. I'm seeing as well where the likes are of the battle we saw earlier. Maxime Briand comes through now into the lead of the race, Briand with a nice healthy margin to, I believe, Ramez Azam. Who was that fighting? He was actually fighting with Daniel Kraft, but Daniel Kraft has dropped back quite a lot in this little fight. So maybe Daniel Kraft has had a bit of a slower pit stop this time around.
Yeah, it seems like, to be fair to Dan...
I don't think it's too much to have taken tyres, though.
No, Dan was only in the pits for 25 seconds as opposed to 24 for Peter Zuber.
Did he overshoot his pit box?
Yeah, his pit lane time was about 2 seconds more, and the gap between them now is 2.6 seconds. So yeah, I'd say that's all it is. Nickname is in Latin, but you can tell it the way you like. Well, thank you very much, Sin. I'll call you Sin instead now, because now I've done that wrong as well. Right then. So Peter Zuber's teammate at Impulse Racing, the two Hungarian drivers in that team. Lovely looking car as well. And I'm still just... I'm in love with the fact that we can look down our timing screen, and unfortunately we can't show everybody all the flags all the time, but there is such a mix of nationalities in this grid. I love it. It's such an international championship already here from Apex Technologies. Of course, this being the first round of the championship, the TPI Cinema Daytona 120, we have 4 races that are 2 hours long. The next one, I believe is going to be just actually.
If you're having a look, we're trying to find out where it is.
It's on Valentine's Day at Silverstone. We have
there's the Meridian Auto,
yes.
I think Silverstone LMP2 Classic, I believe.
Yes, Meridian Audio, I think it is, or is it Auto? I might have written it.
Audio, sorry, yeah, Audio, my mistake.
Knowing me, I've probably written Auto instead of Audio because I go into autopilot. Anyway, we have that on Valentine's Day, so tell the wife to go have a bottle of wine on her own because we're going to go racing. Molnar Peter trying to chase down Burkhard Maring at the moment in the SimCity Esports car. Again, these conditions looking very pretty indeed. Just over half an hour to go. Oh, there you go. Nice little glint there. But still, it's interesting stuff from these guys because they do tend to close up on one another quite quickly, but it's just the hanging back and not going for position and saving fuel, isn't it? It's just trying to assess everybody's tactics is very, very difficult from an outside point of view.
Yeah, exactly. It's because we sit in quite comfortable in our little virtual comms box. We can always sort of pick and dissect every little thing that the driver's doing. Whereas when you're in the cars, it becomes much more of a high-pressure situation. You can't take a critical view of things looking from the outside in. You're really just in the moment. You're in the heat of things, and you might make a few rash decisions. But I've just seen in the chat as well that is a 75% fuel restriction. So there is going to be one extra pit stop in this race for these drivers, and for our race leader Maxime Briand, it could be one extra pit stop and a splash and dash. It's going to be close, I think, for our race leader on fuel, which could be an absolute massive turn-up if that is the case. Meanwhile, though, we're seeing Robert Edouard getting through a few back markers there in his pursuit of Pablo Prado up in front, going through the International Horseshoe there. The sunlight gleaming off of the nice chrome yellow and red of his Banzu RX Flow car. A nice little livery. It's almost a similar sort of colours, at least to the Flemish Sim Sports car with the sort of the chrome. Of course, the Flemish Sim Sports are a bit more orangey, I suppose, with the
it's a bit more
Belgian
matte.
flag livery. A bit more matte as well, yes.
But that certainly does look good, the Banzu RX Flow machine. I remember when I first saw spec maps in iRacing, I think it was Tito Grania, and he was racing in the Sim Racers World Formula 3 Series with a completely chrome gold Formula 3 car, which, as you can imagine, it was like the Golden Deagle from back in the day on Call of Duty 4. Really stood out, looked amazing, and it certainly does work.
Oh, you're taking me back, Chaz.
I know, I've just sort of like checked my watch just to see what year it is. With
playing games that I was definitely old enough to be playing at the time. Definitely.
I must actually bring our attention to this, because Pablo Prado now, while he does have Robert Edouard behind him, Justin Young, not Justin Jung, or Justin Young, he's only 1.7 seconds ahead for this class lead for the Bull Out Racing machines.
So you could say that Young is only just in the top spot of the AM class.
And Robert Edouard
close
there learning from Lowell, who he was racing against earlier, across the nose. That was a bit of a moment, wasn't it? But we move, we continue.
Tell you what, though, we're coming into the final half an hour here, Chaz, and the racing is really starting to heat up again. The drivers are seeing that the end is in sight, and they've only got one more pit stop to go. The gloves, I think, are starting to come off. We can see already the close fighting between Roberto Edouard and the car behind Pablo Prado. And we've got a replay here of Carlos Olv. What's happened here, Chaz?
I think the gold has just blinded him as he came round into the sun. That was just a very, very strange moment there. The car just... it just touches the grass the tiniest bit on the left. Just hooks that front left wheel. And then it seems like it's on a caster or something, or it was dipped down on that little dropped bit of concrete on the left. And it doesn't want to go, and he has to wait to get back on. He has recovered a little bit, but that looks even shinier than his counterpart. But unfortunately, not quite working for him there. Still, the race continues on. Young still leads it. And now he's got Edouard between him and Pablo Prado. That might help him out, because it's for overall position between those guys. And I know that they'll still fight for it. So the class win, it's not an unreasonable shout, really, for Justin at this point of the race. But of course, in your first race of the season, no matter what you've been doing before in terms of leagues or officials or anything like that, it's always good to start off with a podium, a top 10. You know, everybody has their own targets in stuff like this, don't they? And I feel that a lot of these drivers will probably be very pleased with how it's gone tonight, because I think there's a bit more... I don't want to sort of take anything away from shorter races and sprint racing, but I think there's a lot more involved in getting a good result in a race like this, when it's a lot longer and there's a bit more strategy to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I think you and me, we've both got experience with that, of course, with the Sunday Drivers MX-5, the first race of the season at Silverstone, I believe you won. No. And funny enough, the first race of the season for me at Silverstone, in the Sim Race World BMW Trophy, I managed to take a win in as well. So maybe there's something about Silverstone here that us SRW boys are quite good at. But meanwhile, Alexander Waldo, he's getting quite close and quite good up with Molnar Peter. But we've had a replay here, an incident with Daniel Kraft. He was, I believe, up fighting for the podium places, and again just seems to take a little bit too much speed into the corners, gets a little bit too heavy on the brakes, trying to avoid contact with the car as in front, and then just spins himself all the way around into the first corner and loses yet again more places. It's always that first corner, I think, that's been catching Daniel out.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, because you're starting to brake just as you come down off the banking. Look at that commitment there from Walton. Oh, a bit too much commitment. I was going to say, that was amazing.
Unsighted, I think, from the slower car, maybe.
Yeah, I think he maybe had it in his head that he was going to go around it, and then it just didn't pay off, unfortunately. But yeah, I was going to say, as you're braking for turn one, you're coming down off the banking. We'll go on board again, actually, with Alex after that, based on his commitment there. He needs to serve that slowdown before turn one. So we'll go on with Molnar Peter in front. because it's just still angled a little bit. You're braking, the car then goes flat, then it hits the bump off the banking. There's a bit of bumpy surface on the inside of the first corner as well. It's just, it puts the suspension through a hell of a lot, and especially when you're trying to brake as well, and you're right on the limit of locking up the fronts or even locking up the rears and spinning the car around. Don't forget, these guys run a lot of rearward brake bias to be as quick as possible and get the car pitched in on the brakes. It's very difficult to get it right lap after lap. I'm sorry for my good friend Matt Bunn, but he's had an issue and gone off circuit here. But this is another part of the circuit where that happens, isn't it? It's bumpy, you're turning in while you're braking. Easy to loop these things there.
Yeah, and it's typical slow speed LMP2 turn, isn't it? Like you mentioned, you don't have the downforce going over the car, compressing it down, giving it you that grip, that speed you can take through the corners. And if you do take that little bit too much speed in the rear, it loves to overtake the front just a little bit too much, and you can occasionally catch it. But by doing so, you find yourself going almost straight on into potentially a wall if the walls are close, like they can be on that area of the circuit. So the safest thing to do is just to let it loop around, sort itself out, and hopefully you find yourself pointing in the right way after the spin. If not, because the car's got such quite a long wheelbase, you'll have to spend a little time trying to spin the rear wheels up and get yourself pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things about these LMP2 cars that people often forget is just how big they are. You know, inside they may be very cramped and very small cars, but at the end of the day, they're made to have the cockpit and the bubble in the middle of it as small as possible to punch as little hole in the air as possible. But they are really, really big cars. They are, like you say, Ed, very long wheelbase machines. And to be honest, not easy to get that performance out of them. It still does amaze me how quickly these things go around corners, how quickly they change direction. And these guys certainly doing an amazing job at handling it. This is Timothy Hayden, who we saw, don't forget, have an issue on the first lap. One of the quickest guys on circuit early on. He did a 132.6 last time round. Sorry, he didn't. He was a 134.5 as opposed to the 134.3 of Rodrigo ahead of him. Everybody else in front of that, except for Molnar Peter, doing 133s, 132 from Alexander Walton, so he was the quickest car on track, but I think the slowdown maybe helped that one. Although, no, actually, I'll shut up because it was more than a lap ago that he had said slow down, so ignore the commentator, he's wrong. But, yeah, some mega pace coming from these guys inside the top 10. And not too much spread after that, really, because if you look from Figueiredo down to Teixeira, who is the last car on the lead lap, ahead of Roda, it's not really too far down the line, is it? And a lap here is, what, 132? So he's about 4 seconds off being lapped again, is Teixeira. So I think, to be fair, we've got a nice even spread at the minute.
Yeah, exactly. And now I think we're into the stage of the race where you can take a pit stop now and go till the end of the race. So Briem should be safe now with about 25 minutes remaining. I think with a 75% fuel tank, that will get you 25 minutes worth of running here at Daytona, but it could be close. So Brienne's going to hope that this race doesn't go any longer than it has to when he comes across the line. But that also means, because he's going to have to take a full tank of fuel, or near enough a full tank of fuel, the cars behind the likes of Azam and Zuber and Kraft, they will be taking shorter stops in the pit stop, maybe around about, what would you say, Chaz? Maybe about 10 seconds, 15 seconds compared to a full 25 second stationary?
Yeah, potentially. It has the potential to be that low, I reckon. Some of these drivers will just calculate it to perfection. Others will just put as much in as they can and crack on with it, as we see Bart Horston making a move ahead of Lowell into 14th position now. Justin Young still leads the amateur classes. Oh, running wide there. Who is that? I think it was that. I was just trying to figure out who it was, but I can't quite see. The number 55 machine of Daniel Andres. Of course, teammate of the car just a few positions ahead, Bart Horston. It's always fun to see your teammates when you're in a different battle to them, because you get that sort of, are they going to help me, are they not, what's he going to do here sort of situation, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And it's maybe if you're in the same Discord together with him, you can communicate a little bit, talk together, and do the best way through. As we see Molnar Peter, he's having to carve his way through a couple of back markers. So does Alexander Walton. He was really flashing the headlights. He did not want to be held up one little bit as they go into turn one. And oh, there's the car spinning off the road. That's Daniel Kraft, I think, who's facing the wrong way.
It is. Dan back on again. Now, does that car look damaged to you? It looks a little bit damaged to me on the...
On the right.
I think it's just the design of the car. Oh, Jake Blackall, you're to blame for that. Now, EJ Filner has gone off. Oh, and Dan's already around. Oh, and then Matt Bunn. Oh, no. Bunny. Oh, out of all people to hit your teammate.
Bunny takes a bounce over the grass as well to avoid it.
So this is what happened to Dan. Oh, sorry, this is Bunny. Oh, there is a hit, but it's netcode based. That's such a shame. And Dan's been
I think that was Bunn that
fast.
spun around, and Daniel Croft was the one that took evasive action, actually, I think.
I think it was, actually, yeah. Matt Bunn was the one that spun. Matt spun, as he's known. Oh, just clips that grass. And yeah, it is Dan. Yeah, you were right. Stupid Chaz should look at the car numbers, shouldn't he? I tell you what, the other two as well that went through there, that was a really good job at avoiding that. What a fantastic bit of avoidance.
This is why I'm loving this series so far. It's only been, what, about 1 hour 40 into the first round of the championship, and I'm absolutely here for it. I'm really looking forward to the remaining rounds in this championship, because so far I've been treated to some absolutely spectacular performances here. We've just seen now round the outside Alexander Walton on Molnar Peter, good on the braces. Then there's another car off, and I think that might be, is that Timothy Hayden potentially off the circuit in the Impulse Racing car? He was up the order as well.
I think Jose Buizan's gone off, the Iridium car, but I can't see Hayden going off. We'll click to him. Well, I think, is that down towards... This is down towards turn 1, isn't it? So he's across the line, he's on the clutch, you can hear it. Loses the revs. Oh, he's getting approached very quickly there from cars behind.
Oh no, he gets through fine, I think. Oh no, he has to get on the brakes and slows down a lot.
Yeah, that's...
Did he have a slowdown that he was trying to clear or something? Or that's a weird one.
Yeah, something not quite right there with that car, I don't think. That's a very strange one. Alexander Walton now has Molnar just behind him. Oh, there was actually a bit of a touch there. That was one of the Banzu cars. Who was that? Trying to figure out which one of them that was. I'm sure it was a Banzu car that he just had a touch with. Maybe Mauro Prado. Now, I don't know if we can get back to that because it hasn't come up as an event on our viewer. No, it wasn't him, I don't think. No, it would have been. Oh, I'm not sure. That was...
It's a weird one though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's...
They don't need to get that close when you're in a straight line at the end of the day, do you? That's the thing.
Yeah, maybe that's what happens when we're into the last 20 minutes now, Chaz. It's absolutely flown by this race. The drivers, they're starting to maybe lose their heads a little bit. It's a long time to be in the car and a long time to be almost treating the race. It's only 2 hours. It's kind of on the verge between an endurance and a sprint. And if you want to do well in these sorts of races, you're going to have to treat it like a 2-hour sprint race. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it, as a commentator to say, oh, it's like a 2-hour sprint race, but this is basically what it has become, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's what makes it all the more enjoyable. You get the joys of sprint racing and all of the pace and, I don't want to say crazy driving that comes with it, but you know, it's more frantic. More goes on in these races when these drivers are completely flat out all the time. But it's been very, very exciting. So hats off to the guys at Apex Technologies for putting this on. Can't wait for the rest of the season. I'm gonna have to speak to Ian and see if I can make the rest of them. I do race in a league on Sunday nights, as Ed has mentioned, the Sunday Drivers MX5 Cup. Maxime Briant back in the pits. I do want to say this in association with Sunday Drivers. There's a number of drop rounds as well, so I might have to use them to commentate on this because this is a lot of fun. Maxime then stops the car. There we go. Stays in first gear. There goes Azam.
Go around him.
Yep. Flying through. It's amazing. You can see the speed of the cars when they come through turn 1. Look at that. They are absolutely launching into there. There's Alexander Walton.
Ooh. A bit sketchy on the brakes.
I was going to say, that's what you love about these cars.
Still sketchy on the exit as well. These cars are really on the ragged edge.
He's done it 132.8 last time round. It was a 133.2 and 133.4 from Ramez and Peter ahead of him. So Alexander is the quickest man on circuit at the moment. And by some margin, he's a good half a second faster than everybody around him at the minute. There's some more... Actually, no, there's not 32s further down, actually. I thought there was. There's a couple more 33s, but yeah, he is on a mission at the moment, is Mr. Walton.
And that's only, I think, 2/10 off of the fastest lap for our race leader, our current race leader, at least Ramez Azam. So Alexander Walton is being able to do these lap times consistently as the sun is coming out, as the track temp is warming up. He doesn't seem to be slowing down whatsoever, even as the tyres as well. Don't forget, they've been on since the start of the race. They've been worn really quite a lot over the course of 1 hour and 43 minutes. Although, look at this, Daniel Kraft coming on by putting himself ahead now of Burkhard Maring going through the bus stop. That's a change, of course, for position. Daniel Kraft up into 5th place. He's got a few more laps to go before we expect to see him into the pits. Maybe, as we've seen in the chat, I think Sine saying we'll have to pit with a roundabout in the last 10 minutes. And I think that's probably bang on right, as Daniel Kraft and Molnar, the pair of them, have been going a lot longer than our race leader Maxime Briant, who has, of course, exited the pit lane and is now trying to set us up to getting past Ramez Azam, which he does. Ramez Azam into the pits. Briant goes around, and now exiting the pit lane goes Ramez. Maxime Briant there, we can see him going through turn 1 and turn 2. And the International Horseshoe about, 3 seconds clear, perhaps? Or maybe not 3 seconds, about 7 seconds clear, would you say, of Ramez Azam. So that gap has closed down over the pit stop phases, but not enough for Maxime to be totally worried just yet.
Yeah, that's it. He just needs to give it a lap and let it change around, because even, I mean, at our end as well, we need the intervals to update. 7 seconds it seems, but it does take time for them to get into their rhythm again. So Peter Zuber is back in the lead of this race for Impulse Racing. Alexander Walton is 8.4 seconds back now, so he's not really an immediate threat, but we know how quickly this can change. Andy Spicer has had an issue. Oh, again, just on the downshift, on the brakes. And if I had a quid. Bart Halston and Roberto Edward in the pits as well now. That's an Iridium car and a Simsa eSports machine. That looks fantastic, that livery. I really do enjoy that as he makes his way down there. There's a Craig setup shop logo on the side of that car. I don't know why I randomly put on an accent then. Dan Kraft has also got a Craig setup shop logo on his car, the Pure Sims machine. Now, are we going to see some bump drafting from Burkhard Mering? I think, is Burkhard playing the long game here? Is he going to wait for another stop? When was the last time these guys pitted, actually? Lap 52 for both of them. So they've done 15 laps.
I think last time they went 4 laps longer than our race leaders, and they've been consistently going a lap longer every stint, so they might be close to the end, but I think they'll have to pit maybe with about 10 minutes to go.
I was going to say that they will probably have to pit quite soon, but I'm thinking Burkhard's going to stay behind until the last stint and just maybe use the slipstream to his advantage within literally the last lap. I've seen drivers do it before. They'll happily follow the car in front, wait till the very last moment of the race, and just pop out and take the position. And I imagine also on Sim Racers World TV this evening, the Sunday Drivers MX5 Cup is going on, and they're also racing here at Daytona on the older scan of the circuit with the bumpy banking, which I imagine is going to be hilarious.
Ooh.
But I know that a lot of the guys there, I mean, I was practicing with them in the week, and just having track position and not being first on the last lap is key around here. It really is. Lee Tucker has done something that's not key, and he's had a moment as well in the Apex Tech racing car. Beautiful livery, gives us a little spin to show us how it looks, but unfortunately that won't be what he planned there at turn 1.
No, definitely not. Does avoid getting collected though on the rejoin. One of the better rejoins we've seen this evening, as we said. Meanwhile, Molnar Peter, who is ahead now of Daniel Kraft and Burkhard Mering as well. Are any of these drivers coming to pits? No. They're all staying out yet another lap, so they've really been able to fuel save, really using it to their advantage. And now we're going to be wondering, it might be maybe Maxime Briant who's clear off in the front of the race, but the cars behind Rasmus Azam, he might be getting leapfrogged for second place here. If these drivers stay out any longer, then can make sure their last pit stops are, say, a few seconds shorter.
I was going to say, there might be a bit of reverse psychology going on here. He may have actually saved himself a bit of time in the pits, or some of them may have done. And I think that's where we're going to see the real switch around at the very end of this. But still, it's close as you like between these pair. This is 3rd, 4th and 5th. Molnar Peter, Daniel Kraft and Burkhard Mering. All together, bits of dust and gravel being kicked up. Looks like Molnar was a little bit sideways there coming on to the banking, which we all know is easy to do. It's a bumpy bit of circuit. Love the glint there as we go around the banking. What's Daniel Kraft going to do? Is he going to hold up? No, he's just holding back and waiting, isn't he? Being patient. And again, I think that's one of the things that comes into longer races like this, Ed. It's just patience, isn't it? You really need to hang back and just assess the situation as Zuber comes into the pits.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about, as Nicky Lauda said, it's all about risk, and minimising the amount of risk you have to take in the race, especially in this case with strategy. You don't want to do any silly moves, any silly things, trying to maximise the amount of points you get and minimising the risk you take in doing just that. So Peter Zuber coming on into the pits. There goes Maxime Brient around over the tri-oval and into turn 1. And the 3 cars ahead of him on track, and they are all due to come into the pits once more. So Maxime Brient building the gap, as well as we said, to Ramis Hazam and Peter Zuber. That gap now to Peter behind in the Impulse Racing car is 10 seconds. So he's really been able to get a charge on, even though his strategy hasn't been the most optimal one in terms of overall time gain, because he's been able to keep in front and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. He hasn't had to worry about fighting whatsoever, and that's helped him out to no end. Meanwhile, Daniel Kraft finds himself up into the lead of the race, in the lead of this 3-car train, with Molnar Peter and Burkhard Mehring right behind him. And I think Daniel Kraft, did he actually overtake Molnar to get there? Yes, he did. So we're going to see him go around the outside into turn 1. This is it. He's going to try and pull the trigger now. He knows that this is the last phase of the race. He's trying to see if he can leapfrog and get clear into the pits. There he goes, sweeping around the outside onto the brakes, taking a wide line, then cutting in nicely. Meanwhile, further back, Molnar Peter covering off the inside line, not wanting to lose out 2 places, quite content just to let Daniel Kraft go ahead into the lead.
Yeah, that's it. Just playing the long game here as someone doing just that. Burkhard Mehring into the pits, Dan Kraft in at the very last moment. Nice and hard onto the brakes on the way in. Now where's Maxime? There. Absolutely flying. Seemingly untouchable at the minute, Maxime Brient, but don't forget, a lot of these guys, they've had a lot of laps around here recently, to say the least. We've got a battle for the AM class. Oh, as Mauro Prado has overshot it. The 3 of them in the pits, but Pablo Prado and Justin Young, this is the 2 of them for the win in the AM class. So this is very close now. 10 minutes to go.
This is one that I don't think we're going to be wanting to take our eyes away from. It. There's battles everywhere, aren't there, at this late stage of this? There's battles for the podium places in the overall standings in the pro category, but also in the AM. We have a fight for the lead. Pablo Prado there, right behind Justin Young, so close, coming out of pit lane, and Pablo can see the race win, the AM class win, just ahead of him. Look at this, he's really trying to put the aggression on, not really sending moves, but getting close up, instead thinking about piling the pressure on, and that pressure has come to a boil over, because look at that, Justin Young loops it around coming out of the pit lane, didn't quite get back into the rhythm of things, and that's catastrophic for his chances of winning the AM class.
No, Justin, it's so easy to do that out of there. That's a big off as well, properly far away from the circuit, but Pablo Prado will be laughing his head off at the minute in the Banzu RX Flow machine, leading the AM class now. Mauro Prado as well, he's only 1.8 seconds behind Justin Young, but he'll be kicking himself for that moment. Molnar Peter into the pits. Yes, F's in chat, everybody. I'll even bang one in there from Sim Racers World TV themselves. Let's get some F's in chat. Unfortunately for Justin Young, but that was going to be a mega fight, in all fairness, and I'm afraid a little bit of eagerness on the throttle has taken that away from us, Ed.
Yeah, I was just, as I mentioned, the pressure coming in from Pablo Prado just behind. He was really just trying to close in, putting on pressure. Oh, what has happened here? Rodrigo Lizowski. What on earth happened there? He just seemingly got off into the banking.
Oh, he's just sideways and around. Oh, and he gets a hit. That was Mejim Aliou. Just gave him a little bit of a kiss on the way through, but hard to avoid that. He went to go high and get out of the way, but the Fuel Tech Esports team car, as we've said, these are big cars. They don't just disappear and get out of the way. The gap at the front has come down, though. As you mentioned before, Ed, you thought this was going to come down. Ramez Azam is now only 8.8 seconds back from Brienne. It was about, what, 13 seconds earlier, wasn't it? So Ramez has been flying in this Simsa esports machine.
So as well, though, has Maxime Brient, though. He's done a 33.29. Ramez has done a 33.49. We're going to be able to see the times when they come across the line just to see how this is shaping up. But Maxime Brient has got to slow down quite a lot, I imagine, to be in danger of being caught by the likes of Ramez right behind. Another 33.2. So consistent. Not even that's about half a tenth between Maxime Brient's last 2 lap times. And Ramez Azam, he's only a 10th off of his previous time. So it just shows the level of competition, the level of driver that this Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship has, is that the drivers are quick, and most importantly, consistent.
Yeah, indeed. 34.6 though last time around, so 1.4 seconds off what Maxime did. So that's a big chunk of time, actually. I thought it was only... I looked at it, I glanced at it, thought it was 4/10 difference, but no, it was 1.4 seconds. It's quite the loss to have. Merjim Aliou comes into the pits. I'm wondering if he's got some damage from that incident. Although I don't think he's pitted very recently. Some of the drivers within the top 10 were slightly out of sync. But we were then looking at Dan Kraft, who is only a second behind Molnar Peter, who we're looking at now. We'll look back. There is Dan. On to the banking in just a moment. Do love the pops and bangs on the overall, the great noise that these cars make, these Dallara P217s. iRacing doing wonderful things with Dallara. Of course, the IR01 as well, which I know many people adore. I personally think it looks ridiculous, but I imagine I've been told it drives absolutely incredibly. And to be fair, it's a very interesting and realistic insight to potentially the future of Formula 1 even, you know, Formula racing on that level. Maybe not with a V10, of course. We all love a V10, but let's face it, I don't think we're going to see them again in Formula 1. As EJ Fulner was probably hoping he had a V10 in the back of it, or maybe not, because it would have been heavier than the rear end already was. And that went around quite simply, didn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, EJ Fulner just losing the rear of the car. I've seen it so many times, though, from many drivers this evening, so he's not the only one. I suppose that's some small comfort to EJ. Meanwhile, though, and now Peter is trying to close in on Burkhard Maring, but the gaps have started to increase with the strategies as well, having their part to play in this fight. And now Peter losing out a little bit to Burkhard Maring, and where is Daniel Kraft? Daniel Kraft was actually the lead car of this 3-way fight, but found himself at the back of this 3-car fight, and Burkhard Maring was way at the back of this fight, and it's all basically swapped around. Burkhard Maring saving fuel and has really paid dividends, because he's up at the moment in 5th position. Meanwhile, Savino Melillo, what's happened for the Holy Cow driver? This is going into the International Horseshoe. Just locks on, goes straight on as soon as he's on the grass. That's it. It's like being on an ice rink. You have no grip whatsoever, and then collects the car. Does he keep out the wall? Yes, just about.
Yeah, indeed. Savino Melillo was saying hello to the wall there for just a moment, going past the International Horseshoe. It's like someone trying to put a horseshoe on a cow. But Maxime Brient, what can you say apart from Chaz's horrendous puns? It's been a really interesting performance. He's just been keeping it nice and level-headed all the way through. And Joseph Shanley in the chat has just said, I think EJ's just spinning out at this point to get some screen time. And to be fair, he's doing a good job of it. If that's what it takes, it's a good sacrifice. He's taking one for the team. We can see the number 32 Apex machine just behind him there. That's Lee Tucker, Apex Tech Racing, currently 36, 4 laps down. But still plugging away. I was going to say a clean car, but obviously with the amount of racing it's done, it's got the muck and stuff up the front of it, and it looks mega for it. This is Daniel Andres in the Iridium Motorsports machine, only 0.6 of a second ahead of Stephen Hatter in the Gallo Manco car, another very pretty machine. Now, interestingly, that is MXU, I believe it is, which is Bryce. I only know his first name at the minute, but Bryce designed the Zansho SimSport cars that I drive, and his liveries are absolutely amazing. It's like a spin on those. It always annoys me when you see cars with anime liveries all over them, and it just really bothers me, but Bryce's are like an artistic representation of that just isn't anime. It's just this fantastic, almost like tattoo artist style that he's got. A very, very Japanese looking approach to his liveries, and they just look amazing. I'm sure you can all agree by just looking at this one alone. But we're only a few minutes away from the end of this race here in the LMP2 Championship. the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship here on Sim Racers World TV. Don't forget as well, guys, do give the video a like if you are watching. And of course, make sure you subscribe to Sim Racers World TV to catch the rest of this championship, which we will be broadcasting. Can't wait to get to each of the subsequent rounds after this one. And of course, you can always see any other series which we broadcast on the channel as well. We have plenty of them, plenty of GT series. We have the MX-5s, of course, which we've mentioned a lot this evening. We also have the Dynamics Endurance series, which includes these Dallara P217 cars. It's very, very, very much fun indeed here on Sim Racers World TV. We do have a good laugh while doing it, don't we, Ed?
Exactly, yeah, and you're missing out the biggest one as well, the one that you're going to see the one and only Ed May taking part in the Sim Racers World BMW Trophy that's going to be coming on this coming Wednesday, I believe, every other Wednesday. So that's going to be something to look forward to. In fact, you've just reminded me I need to do some practice for Imola because I've done absolutely none of it.
And Imola is an absolute sausage of a track as well. It's a real pain in the backside, a real Achilles heel for me.
I won't have any slander Imola. I love it.
I love driving it, but I tell you what, I'm terrible at it. I just want to point out something that something that's come up on the overlay here for Luca Fioravanti. Now, a lot of the time we get to see the top speed that some of these cars have done, and when you're being realistic, I think Arthur Figueiredo has got the fastest at the moment that I can see, 344 Ks, 346 for James Ibram, but obviously due to internet connections when Luca was blinking before, apparently his car did 720 kilometers an hour. So, well, DRS definitely opened at that point, but yeah, according to our timing screen, I'm not sure if anybody watching along with the live timing link open can see that as well, but yes, apparently Luca has the ability to do 720 Ks, so Hyperdoc confirmed.
that's over like half the speed of sound. That's immense speed from Arthur there. Credit to him, but another credit has got to go for. He's almost gone as quick as to be said. Maxime Brienne, hasn't he? He's been an absolute rocket ship this race. And only a few corners are going to separate himself from the first race victory of this Apex Tech LMP2 series. He's led every single lap that he was on sync with the pits, of course, dropping back every so often when he had to take an earlier fuel stop because he didn't have anyone with him. But that probably shows how quick he was. Didn't have anyone that could match his pace, and instead was off on his lonesome. But I'm sure now he'll have plenty of friends to celebrate with when he gets onto the podium. Just the first stop to go, and then the run across the line.
Indeed, he's been an absolute star so far in this series, and this race alone has been a magical performance. The 2-hour mark has gone, 76 laps here at Daytona, and it's going to be at least 12 seconds to the good for Maxime Brient of Mivano Sim Racing. What a drive, sunshine, flashes the lights, takes the win in the LMP2 Championship, the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. And second place is going to go the way of Ramez Azam from Canada. Mega drive from him as well. Peter Zuber not too far back in third. Impulse Racing flies across the line. He's then followed by the two Germans, Alexander Walton and Burkhard Maring. 3.7 back for Simsa Esports. But look at that, Ed. 3 Simsa Esports cars in the top 5. What a brilliant drive by those guys.
Yeah, they're going to be very happy with that result, aren't they, Simsa Esports? If there's a team championship, they're certainly going to be top dogs this time around. Meanwhile, I want to see where exactly the AM fight is. This is Justin Young. Meanwhile, Pablo Prado has come across the line to take victory in the AM class. Justin Young, I think he can blame me for the curse of the commentators as he had that little spin on the start of his final stint in the last few minutes. That little mistake was what really cost Justin the top spot of the amateur podium.
Indeed, but still 2 Prados on the podium in the AM class. They'll be very happy with that. Banzu RX Flow, real shame for Justin Young, but well done to Pablo Prado on the first AM win of the season. We're just on board with Stephen Hatter. He is trying to chase Daniel Andres for position, but he's a second off the back of him now. He is going to cross the line in 28th place for Gallo Manco. Just trying to see if anybody else is finishing a lap behind him. Robert van den Heuvel for Holy Cow Racing. Thank you very much, everybody, by the way, for the kind words regarding the broadcast. We are really, really pleased that you've enjoyed the show. And Robert doesn't even bother to to finish a full lap, although I think he might have finished around the leaders. But wow, what a brilliant first race to open the account of this championship with. That was a hell of a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah, and I think there was a close finish at the end of the race, because I'm not sure if this is... Oh, as we see, we've seen Brent slam it into the end of the pit box there, but I saw there was, at one point, I think we saw Aliu and Figueiredo. They came across the line. I'm not sure if your tyre screen is saying the same thing, but the interval, the gap between them was 0.02 of a second.
Yeah, it's very, very close indeed. Mergim Aliu, we'll have a quick look actually back at this. Let's have a look. So this is on their final lap, of course. So it was these two for what position would this have been? Mergim Aliu got ahead of him by 200, so this would have been for 11th and 12th
place
in class. Although actually I've got it showing as Figueiredo finishing 11th.
Oh, you've got his Figueiredo ahead.
Yeah. This will be intriguing to see. We will follow this. We'll see what goes on here, because I'm intrigued to see what the slipstream does. Because obviously Aliu is going to hold back, and he's going to know that out of the bus stop is his fine moment. He gets a little bit sideways there though. He loses a bit of momentum. Pretty banging tune to have on board with this car as well, as we bop along on the banking. He's going to still get a little bit of slipstream from there, but he needs a really good run out of the bus stop, and that'll make all the difference. Look at that, though. A little bit of slipstream, flipping out. Nice, composed through there. He gets on the power a bit early. You saw it turn in well. So Aliu is going to close up around this final corner. Now look, he's gone high there. He's going to try and block whichever way he wants to go. Side by side, they go to the line. And Aliu's going to take it. Fantastic.
Oh, it's close.
Fantastic stuff there at the end. Absolutely love that. We'll get you your race results then, everybody, for the very first round in the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. Maxime Brient wins 12.7 seconds over Ramez Azam, with Peter Zuber in third position. Not quite sure why all the car numbers aren't showing up either on there, to be honest, but we'll figure that out. We'll get that sorted. Only one of them there, which is the 82 machine of Fernando Teixeira. Alexander Walton finishes fourth ahead of Burkhard Maring, with Molnar Peter in sixth ahead of Daniel Kraft. Really disappointed for Dan there, because I'm sure he would have been wanting more from that. He was so fast, but still, seventh place in a field as competitive as that. How fantastic is that? Luca Fioravanti in 8th position, with Timothy Hayden in 9th place. There he is, just in the chat as well. Rodrigo Lizowski rounds out the top 10. Mergim Aliu is 11th, with Arthur Figueiredo in 12th. Bart Horston is 13th, with Alvaro Melendez in 14th, with Ayebola Lawal. Dennis Ruda is 16th, with Fernando Teixeira in 17th, ahead of Augustin Blanco in 18th place. Behind him, the winner of your AM class this evening, Pablo Prado, with Justin Young and Mauro Prado rounding out the podium in class. Then it's Christopher Damcola in Enter Name Here Racing, 22nd. Roy Massey is 23rd, ahead of James Ibram and Jacob Money, with Mark Winters just behind in 26th. Then we have Daniel Andres and Stephen Hatter in 28th position. Then it's Carlos Olv with Kamal Hashimi. Didn't see any of Kamal over the course of that race, sorry mate. Andy Spicer with Manuel Winans and Aaron Mack, ahead of Jose Buizan, who was very exuberant early on, with Ryan Donaher behind Lee Tucker, Savino Melillo and Robert van den Heuvel. The overlay still doesn't like your name, Robert, and I'm really not sure why. It's very irritating, isn't it, mate? We'll get that sorted. E.J. Filner, 39th, ahead of Christopher Stahl in 40th. Robert Edouard, 41st. He really dropped down near the end, unfortunately. Jancho Oval, I'm really sorry if I've got your name wrong, mate. He finishes 42nd, with Ivo Loebscher 43rd. Matt Bunn 44th, 17 laps down. Rennie Racing, Drew Lloyd, hopefully he doesn't have any heart problems after watching where he's finished there. Michael Flus 46th, Fabian Massey 47th, ahead of Tim Ullman in 48th. And there is more. Hugo Preto 49th, 49th. Cohen Mulder 50th. Enzo Carvalho 51st, ahead of Hans Blankart, Stephen Orell, Alex Guzmel and Luke Schneider in 55th. And that will round out our entire field. Well, What a fantastic evening's racing, Ed. That was just so much fun to do, wasn't it? And of course, we've got driver interviews in just a moment.
Exactly, yeah. It was such a great way to open up the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship, isn't it? We started off the race with some frantic fighting for position. One stage there was, I think 7 cars all fighting over second place. But I think, Chaz, you can have a talk to the driver that wasn't really involved in much fighting whatsoever throughout that entire race. And here he is in the comms box. Maxime Briant, what a race from you. You got away in the front, let the cars squabble behind, and then you just got your head down and went about your business.
Yeah, thank you very much. Being in pole helped a lot. Like, guy behind, I mean, P2 wasn't in range for the draft basically. So yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, the 2 first lap were, well, the most difficult lap. But yeah, after that, I just took care of my tires and it paid off.
Yeah, and how did the strategy pay off in the later phase of the race? Because we noticed that you were coming to the pits a few laps, or maybe a couple of laps earlier than your competitors further behind. Was it just because you didn't have any slipstream to work off, or were you just going full flat out, not worrying about lifting and coasting?
I just wasn't slipstreaming at all compared to the guys behind, and yeah, I didn't take any risks with the fuel and tires and car. Like I was doing very carefully with the car, and yeah, I just push, and that's why I just fitted earlier than everyone else, I think.
And we were alluding to it earlier on in the broadcast, coming off of the back of the Daytona 24 hours, a lot of these drivers might have had a setup from beforehand. Were you running the same setup that you used in Daytona 24, or have you done a few little tweaks here and there to get it set up for a 2 hours, sort of almost, I guess, a sprint in comparison?
No, absolutely not. It's the same setup than we used at the 24 hours, so it was pretty competitive. So yeah, that was a great car.
Very well done, Maxime. And is there anyone you want to give a quick shout out to here on the Sim Races World TV channel before we say goodbye to you?
Thank you very much to my crew chief Thomas Okada, who helped me with the fuel and the strategy. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Thanks to the admin again for this great league. I mean, it's pretty interesting to have a fuel LMP2 grid. Don't think we have anything like that. So yeah, thanks to them.
Definitely. And actually, I was going to say goodbye to you, but we've got Chaz Draycott who wants to have a little quick word with you. So you're not quite out of the woods yet. Chaz, over to you.
Yeah, all professionalism is going to go out the window, Maxime, but I approve of the fact that you have Pusheen the cat as your profile picture in Discord. Not everybody can see this, but if they know what Pusheen is, then they'll know how much that means. But honestly, they'll make amazing performance tonight. You should be very, very proud of yourself for that. It was awesome.
Thank you.
He's done it for Pusheen, everybody. Great to speak to you, Maxime.
Pusheen.
See you soon, buddy. I wonder if it's Le Pusheen in French, but we'll never find out, I suppose. Next up is Ramez Azam, who put in one hell of a performance there, especially near the end of that race, to be on pace with the guys around him. Ramez, that didn't look very easy. I mean, a lot of these guys will sit out there and say, oh, it's just a 2-hour sprint, but with the amount that was going on and the amount of pit stops you have to do in this P2 car, it's not straightforward by any stretch of the imagination, is it?
Hey guys, no, absolutely not, especially with this 75% fuel limit we have, so made things a bit more interesting. But yeah, the start of the race was okay. Maxime just did his thing. He's just way too quick, and the rest of us were just fuel saving. And after the first stop, I lost a bit of time, so I lost the tow from second and third. So that whole stint I wasn't saving, I was just pushing, and then the third stop I short fueled just to get back in the tow and fuel save, and yeah, it worked out in the end. I managed to save enough fuel in that stint, and come back in second place.
I was going to say, you mentioned changing the strategy up a little bit there, you know, take a bit less fuel to get back into the draft. Like, in my head, that's not even something I'd even think about, you know, I can't calculate things quickly enough to do that, but from your perspective, how difficult is it to do something like that in a race like this?
Well, I mean, I was 3 seconds behind them, so I kind of just guessed that 10 liters of fuel takes 3 seconds to fill, and I really needed to get back on their tail because otherwise my last stop would have been way too long. So we all had to pit 4 times, so I really needed to save some fuel. So I just made that sacrifice on the first and second stop, and then it worked out in the end.
Yeah, it certainly did. You can say that again. The conditions were also quite interesting as well, going from nighttime racing and the circuit being really cool to the sun coming up and it getting a lot hotter. Did you find that the track became more and more difficult as the race went on, or did it not make much difference in that time frame?
The track was about the same. It's just the tires. We all just quad stinted the tires, so at the end of the race, our tires were all, less than half of their life. So traction was a big issue, and you really had to look after your rear tires. It wasn't too bad in the end, but everyone had to quad stint. If you took tires, you'd lose 10 seconds. If you just took rears, and that would just kill your race completely.
Yeah, it seemed like it was who's going to blink first with that sort of thing. But do you think that's going to be the theme over the course of the championship? Because we've seen that these P2 cars do handle tyres well over 2 hours. Daytona's quite bad on the rears. Other circuits will be bad more on one side and quite even on the front and rear. Well, I'm sure we're going to get some tracks with some track conditions where we're going to have to take tyres. Well, I look forward to seeing how it develops, mate. Well done again from us here at Sim Racers World TV. Is there anybody you would like to give a shout out to before you go?
Yeah, just want to say thanks to Peter, the team boss of Simza, and my teammates Alex, Burkhard, Robert, and Gustas as well, who wasn't racing today, for just helping with the setup and practicing and putting in the time. And 3 of us ended up finishing in the top 5, so I think we can be quite proud of that. And yeah, thanks to the organisers and you guys for the broadcast.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, mate. Great to speak to you, and we'll see you next time round.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Lovely guy, Ramez Azam. And like said there then, Ed, just being able to switch up the strategy partway through like that, on the fly, get that time back into the slipstream so you can fuel save what you've not put in later. That's just... I can't even comprehend that. That's genius, really.
Well, that's more than 40 chess. That's like 5-dimensional interstellar chess, that is. To do that behind the wheel as well while doing all of this. Of course, you're going to have your teammates in Discord that might help you along, but when you're in the car having to do all of that, that is a definite skill to have. It's not just about turning the wheel and pressing the pedals. It's all the mental game that comes along with it.
It is indeed. And it certainly was a tough one all the way through that, but someone else that managed to finish on the podium, and we'll be very pleased with it. Peter Zuber joins us from Impulse Racing. Peter, that looked like a lot of hard work. We've said this obviously to all the guys. It's not straightforward doing just 2 hours flat out in this car, is it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's very correct. Actually, I do need to admit that this was a bit surprising for me to finish on the podium, because this is by far one of my worst tracks in the calendar. Was a little bit busy for me this week, so I couldn't really put that much practice in, but I could lean on the practice I put in for the 24.
Well, in all fairness, I mean, if this is one of your bad tracks, it makes us think, well, what can you do when it's one of your good tracks, eh? I mean, we've got a very, very good calendar coming up. Is there any specific circuit you're looking forward to most?
I believe Nürburgring is the next week, which I usually perform very well at, so I have high hopes for that circuit. So that's where I would like to challenge for the win, possibly, but at least get the podium consistency is probably going to pay off in the long run.
That's it. You've got to think the long game with the points, haven't you, in this championship? And you know as much as we do that you just have to sometimes, even if it's just one extra position, you have to sort of hang back and maybe not push for an issue. Around Daytona, though, with all the slipstreaming, it's not easy to just sit back and watch the car in front of you just stay there, is it?
Oh yeah, that's correct. And actually, I think I was on for a P2 position, judging by how much I gained on Ramez in the last pit stop. But unfortunately, through the lapping phase, I lost the slipstream to Ramez due to getting held up. And that was probably my race for P2 then. However, on the other hand, I was a little bit lucky with Daniel making a few mistakes. Actually, don't know what exactly happened to him, but it turned out lucky for me.
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. You never know until the checkered flag just how these things line up. But very well done from us on your podium. Is there anybody that you would like to give a shout out to before you go?
Yes, I would like to give a shout out to my team for helping me prepare for the 24 race, and obviously for this one as well. Actually, we've done a little bit of strategy work before this race. However, I had to change it when I saw the conditions. It basically didn't allow us to skip the last pit stop, which would have gained us quite a bit of time, but it would have been way too difficult to save so much fuel so that we could skip it.
well, hopefully we see you have some very, very strong results in the rest of the season, mate. Well done again from us, and we will hopefully see you next time round.
All right. See you guys,
Cheers.
and have a great night.
You too, mate. Thank you, Peter. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, Ed, a new season and a new championship here on Sim Racers World TV, and what a corker we've had. I mean, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it, mate?
Exactly, it certainly was. And speaking of the season itself, I believe we have one of the men that's been behind this season. I think, should we bring him into the interview waiting room, Chaz?
Yeah, we'll have
EJ
a...
Fjordner. And good to have you in the Comsworks with us, EJ. It's been a really great start to this Apex Tech LMP2 Championship, and well, roll on Silverstone, I say.
Yeah, hey guys. I can tell you from the back of the field, it looked like it was a pretty exciting race. So I'm glad that that it ended up looking so good from my perspective. I'm really looking forward to watching the replay.
It really was a lot of fun, mate. And I mean, for the first 10, 15 minutes, Ed and I didn't know where to... I mean, most of it we didn't know where to look. But to be honest, there was just so much action all the way up and down the order with the big grid that we had. It was beautiful, if anything. It was, honestly, it looked like some of the guys thought it was a 20-minute sprint early on, but that was great for it. You know, everybody was going for moves. The strategy didn't really come into effect until maybe the half-hour mark. So, yeah, very, very enjoyable indeed. We are going to be, I'm going to say this live on air, but I'm pretty sure that we'll be starting the broadcast a little bit earlier than normal, because obviously we did go live pretty much as the race began, but of course we'll have a chat in the background about that anyway.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, this is our first league, so you know we know even less than most people what we're doing. So I'm just glad that it appears to be coming off really well. So I do want to thank our sponsors, Apex Technology as the series sponsor for the season, and then TPI Cinema. We appreciate their involvement in the league. And guys, it seems like we've hit on a pretty interesting chord in the iRacing community.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, when we started this thing, we were expecting to have 20 or 30 guys that we knew from some of our IMSA races and things like that, and then all of a sudden the pros started lining up. And in speaking with all of those team managers and those guys, it seems like we have a unique format here. And if the racing was as good as it looked through my windshield, I would imagine it's going to keep going. So we're super excited about this thing.
Definitely, mate. Fingers crossed for the rest of it as well. And to be fair, I may have only been a stand-in for tonight, but I want to do the whole series from a broadcasting and commentary perspective, and I'm sure Ed feels the same. So, yeah, you can definitely count us to him for that, mate. But of course, we are going to round things up here. But before you leave us, is there anybody that you would like to give an extra shout-out to?
I mean, honestly, I'm just super impressed with all the racing that I saw. From what I could see, it was pretty clean, except for, of course, 3 of our own team cars taking each other out at the start. I got to look back at what happened there. But I'm sure that was pretty funny for you guys to see. But yeah, we're thankful to all the racers and the sponsors and the viewers. Great job all around. Super exciting.
Smashing stuff, EJ. Well, great to speak to you, mate. Thanks once again for having us on, and of course, we look forward to the following rounds.
Yep, us too. Thanks, guys. Really
Cheers,
appreciate
mate.
it.
Bye. Well, there we go, Ed. That was just... I feel, for the first time in a long time, I feel, other than maybe like a 24-hour race, I feel tired after a broadcast, but in a good way. That was just, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Exactly, it was basically lights to flag, wasn't it? It had everything this race. We saw fights no matter where we looked in the field. There was always one car close behind the bumper of the other, and well, I certainly think if Daytona's provided this exciting race in a circuit like Silverstone coming up in, I think it's a few weeks' time, it's going to be just as good, if not maybe even a little bit better.
Yes, indeed, it certainly will be. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Spotify, for silencing yourself there for a moment. I was just going to try and put some music on, but no, it doesn't want to play that one by the look of it. So that's always a lot of fun. But either way, thank you very much to everybody that has watched this evening here on Sim Racers World TV. This has been the LMP2 Championship by Apex Technologies. Thank you very much, Ed May. Great to commentate with you again, mate. It's been way too long. Thank you, everybody, like I say, for watching. The sponsor of the event as well, TPI Cinema. Thank you guys for getting on board. And we look forward to seeing you on the 14th of February Well, it's going to be a very lovely affair on Valentine's Day as we head to Silverstone. My name is Chaz Draycott. Again, this has been the Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship. Have yourselves a wonderful afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are in the world, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time. Goodbye.